TikTok, time to rock. Had all sorts of technical problems in the past hour. Was getting the spinning wheel with everything. Looks like it's working now, although I assume there are going to be things of issues like being out of sync or something like that. We'll see. Anyway, it was a bunch of technical problems. We got these guys on here. For some reason, John McRae and our brains are absolutely fried. So we're not going to be coherent. But
Yeah.
that's why we got inspiring philosophy here. Inspiring philosophy. Who's always got the research? Always got the research.
Yeah.
Hey, IP.
Yo,
How you doing?
good.
So,
Took a nap today, so my brain is not fried.
So for a long time, you didn't say much about Islam, and all of a sudden you start blasting away at Islam. What's your problem, man?
Oh
Yeah.
well, I for the most part was just doing my own thing, and then Muslims show up and go, we actually like slavery and child marriage and polygamy and killing apostates and all that. And I'm like, holy mother of God, this needs to be dealt with. And so I just made a post on Twitter about this crazy imam saying that yes, that Muslims can take as many women as they want, that as long as they're not Muslims, this is how they turn them into sex slaves, rape them, do whatever they want to them. And so I tweeted that, said, will sane Muslims denounce this? And as far as last time I checked, no sane Muslims showed up to denounce it. And in fact, many Muslims showed up to defend the guy and say, he's right. Yes, we can definitely do this to all the women we want. And I'm just like, yeah, this is a pure evil that needs to be dealt with if this is what you guys actually think. So way to go, guys, for promoting such abhorrently backwards thinking all the time.
Yeah, and I've been saying that they're actually the Dawa guys are creating their own enemies by spouting all of this stuff, thinking, hey, we can defend it, but they don't realize, and even though they can come up with their defense of things like child marriage and stuff, they just don't realize how there were all these people who didn't think that Islam taught these things, and now they go, wait, I thought that was just some fringe lunatic. And it's your main Dawa guys who are all defending this. This is creepy, creepy stuff. So there's that issue. And then as the general rule, if you go back like 12 years, everything we were saying that Islam teaches and they were calling us liars for, they are now shouting from the rooftops, yes, that's exactly what we think. So that is the general rule. We have a comment here. What about the apostate prophet? Do we look like we want to hear from atheists in a video about whether Andrew Tate is right about Christianity? Of course we don't. They would just... No, if AP wants to jump in, AP can jump in. But we are responding to Tate's comments about Christianity. So he's made many over the, I guess, the past few years. Because I think he started talking about it before he converted, and now he just keeps blurting out stupid things. So what should we do? Should we go ahead and just jump into the video and let it get started?
Yeah, and I was going to say real quick, the reason why I've been covering a lot of Islam lately too is because Andrew Tate's and Sneako's, and it's crazy to me that like you have Andrew Tate saying dumb stuff like all of the churches in America have bowed to the LGBT and all this stuff. And all the Muslims keep repeating it in my comments because they're doing no research on this. They're just taking all of the things he says about Christianity and posting it all in my comments all the time. And so, and I'm currently reading through the Quran right now too, by the way. Not sure if I told you that, but yeah, because I hear that the best argument for Islam is that the Quran is written so amazingly that nobody else can write it, or write anything like it. And then people will push back on the saints, the Arabic and all that, of course, too. But I've never read through it all the way, so I'm trying to do that right now. So yeah, and I have a one that's based on themes too. So I have two Qurans that I'm trying to work through. One is a theme-based one, and then one's not. And it's interesting. I'll reserve my comments on it till I finish. But yeah.
Yo, if someone could get the word out about if Sneeko will have me on his podcast, I'd be happy to do that, and I'll fly myself there if he will be willing to interview me on his show. I would totally do that. So someone get the word to him.
I do not believe he would do it just because he might think that's a good idea, but whoever the Dawa guys that he started listening to they will tell him not to do that. They will say, stop that right now. And
well, let's hope not, because I'll pay myself to do it, to go there, and then he can use it for whatever he wants. And I'll do it.
So yeah, any of you out there who are messaging Sneeko, tell him that Inspiring Philosophy is ready to join the stream. Just be careful, because while he's talking to you about Islam and Christianity, he might have some girls making out on his lap. That is
Oh God, yeah.
standard Sneeko practice there.
I'll bring my rosary.
So we've got IP ready to go, ready to join Sneeko. We got John McCrae reading the Quran because he's so getting so annoyed. We will talk about the methodology, right? This look, there's a gay pastor over here. This is why I left Christianity. He will tweet things like that, and not realizing how long did it take to look up gay imams, or if you say, or I made a video about that where I was, oh look, here's a gay imam here, here's a gay imam there, here's a gay imam here. And you have the same thing with LGBTQ. Look, here's a church waving the pride flag. You have entire LGBTQ mosques now.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that you do have this diversity within Islam, but everyone, all the Tate, Sneeko type fans, they all do the exact same thing. They will find like a church or a pastor that does something and say, you see, this destroys Christianity. Christianity's weak. And then what about mosques and imams doing the same thing in Islam? No concept of consistency. We're going to see that over and over and over again. All right, so should we jump into this video here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Everyone be prepared to have your mind blown, just so everyone knows in advance, since this is a Christian channel with Christians on it, you are going to have a language issue. I thought about bleeping things out, but he curses so much it became, I was realizing this was going to take like hours to do. So we're just going to watch it. Just language warning, whenever Andrew Tate is talking, no one is ever going to correct him and tell him not to talk like that. So let's see. Andrew Tate and Christianity. So this is from his recent interview. I should actually put a link to this for anyone who wants to watch the entire interview. But
it's 4 hours long.
Yeah, 4.5 hours. I still haven't gotten through the entire thing because it's hey, it's
I
something.
watched it all on double speed. Yeah, just watch it on double speed. You get through it quicker. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. And John, similar principle when you're reading the Quran.
Yeah.
It's going to be painful to get through. Try and do it double speed.
bunch of statements so far. It's just statements, and I'm just like, man, what am I supposed to do with this? But anyways, we'll see how it goes.
Well, you're about to convert to Islam because it's going to be super powerful. Trust me, I've heard that from the same Dawa guys who say that the Quran's been perfectly preserved and that Muhammad is the greatest man of all time, and who say that child marriage is great. They say that the Quran is wonderful. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I give you a Mr. Andrew Tate.
What's been your evolution of your faith, and where are you at today?
Yeah, I think it's third law, equal and opposite force, what you just said there is absolutely true. There has to be an equal and opposite force to all the evil in the world. And that the equal and opposite force to all that evil has to be God. And I've talked about this at length even with atheists, and I try and say that regardless of whether you're an atheist or not, you're thinking of God as a man in the sky, but you need to think of God as a concept as a whole. And once you do that, it's impossible to accept that he doesn't exist.
I think we do need to comment on that. We're going in a different direction because we want to get to his stuff about Christianity and so on. But does anyone else think that equal and opposite thing is like the dumbest attempt at a philosophical argument?
I never understood why he uses that.
It really sounds like he is touching on basics in philosophy that he has no idea. Like the concept of God, then you have to believe in God is really like it sounds like a layman folk understanding of maybe St. Anselm's or ontological argument. That's kind of what I got from it, because that's what St. Anselm was doing. So it's like, is that what he's trying to do here?
Yeah, as far as the concept point, yeah, it's like when someone like Ali Dawa tries to talk about the contingency argument or something like that, and they don't understand it, but they know that the people who are listening to them are just going to cheer for them no matter what, and they don't understand it either, and so you can kind of get away with saying what you want. But especially that if there's so much evil in this world, there has to be an equal and opposite good that is counterbalancing that is the opposite of that. And he says that is God. And I just have to say, he said the same thing last year, and I think it was in his discussion with Muhammad Hijab, and you could kind of let him slide back then because he obviously had never studied anything having to do with any of that. But then it's been almost a year and he's still saying the same thing. And it's like, how has no one pointed out the problems to him. He's in contact with Dawa guys. They contact him and say, hey, you need to fix that tweet. Hey, you need to take that tweet down. How is no one telling him that this is the stupidest argument ever offered by anyone? And I mean, it is absolutely pagan. If that's how you're thinking about God, that is absolute pagan nonsense, that God is the opposite force.
It sounds like Manichaeanism. This was an early Christian heresy, that there was like two gods. One was good and evil. St. Augustine came out of it. And I mean, the Abrahamic faith idea of evil is more like privatio boni. It's like evil is an absence of good. There's
privation.
Like these opposite forces. Yeah, it's a privation.
Yeah, guys. So if you're not clear on what a privation is, so think of like cold and hot. Cold is not actually a thing. In philosophical terms, you'd say it has no positive ontological status. It's not It's not like a substance. Cold is the absence of heat, right? Darkness
like
is
dark
not
and light.
Yeah, darkness is not a thing. It's not a substance or something like that. It is an absence or a privation of light. So if you want to understand how silly Tate's argument is, he's saying, look around at all the evil in the world. There's so much evil. God is the equal and opposite. He's the equal but opposite of that. Notice there's a finite amount of evil in the world. Very, very finite. You're not even nearly approaching infinite. Sure. And so just as a parallel, think of like all of the darkness in the world, right? Every closet, under every desk, every bit of darkness in the world. Imagine someone saying, there's so much darkness. And I just mean the darkness around us, right? Like in your attic and so on. If you added up all the darkness on the planet, the sun must be the equal and opposite of that. No, the sun is not the equal but opposite of the amount of darkness we have on our planet. Same thing with if you took all the cold that you've ever experienced in your life, every winter, every time you've been chilly, and you said, wow, the sun must be the equal and opposite of that. No, that's not. The sun is way, 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 way hotter than that. And so that's what he sounds like. If you take all the evil that you've ever experienced or that any human being has ever experienced and you add it all up, to say that God is the opposite of that, you're talking about a very finite amount. And so your God is a finite opposite to a limited quantity. And anyone who's looking at that, anyone looking at that should be like, that is pagan nonsense right there. Or, shirk.
Sure, yeah, that's right. I was thinking on Islam, that's way more offensive.
Should be.
Because of their conception. Yeah, it should be, yeah.
And by the way, it's just nonsense. You don't say for everything that there is, there must be this, like, I've got a sandwich. Oh, there must be an equal and opposite of a sandwich. Like, what are you talking about, right? So yeah, guys, you need a better argument than that. If you wanted to go in the direction of evil, then you might want to say, but if there, you could argue like IP was pointing out that it's a privation and so on, and then say, but it's privation of what? And then so there must be good and so on, something like that. Or you can point out, how do you recognize what is truly evil? Right, yeah. There must be some standard. There are all kinds of directions to go in. Yeah. You don't want to say equal and opposite and then use that for your entire life as far as your argument for God. That's just dumb.
Because I was thinking maybe he was probably trying to, or maybe he was butchering the argument from like establishing or grounding morality or something like that, or establishing some ontological good. I was thinking maybe that's what he was trying to do, because I've never heard this. I mean, there's a reason we probably never heard this argument. But it's like I've never heard an argument like this, so I'm assuming that maybe it was an attempt at like the ontological argument mixed with Newtonian physics in some sense. But it's not very coherent. But anyways,
no. And again, it reminds me when the Dawa guys read some classical Christian argument for the existence of God, don't understand it, but their listeners don't understand it either, and so no one bothers to correct them. Guys, correct. Keep in mind, if Andrew Tate wants to make an argument for the existence of God, I hope he offers an awesome argument for the existence of God. So the point is, if I hear him offer a bad argument, you don't get a free pass just because you're arguing for something that someone might agree with. All right, so we're ready to go on and get to maybe a better point, because that one sucked.
Yeah, let's do it.
I said to the atheist, let's say there was 2 islands. You're shipwrecked, right? And there's 2 islands. Both of them are full of savages. On one island, you and your friend are shipwrecked. On one island, your friend goes and he crashes, and they kill him and they eat him. And you go to another island, and they want to kill you and eat you, but they don't because it's against their religion. Did God save your life? Who cares? Who doesn't even know the name of their God? But their God said, don't kill shipwrecked survivors. And now you're alive. So their God saved your life. The concept of God in and of itself saved your life. You owe God just for the concept of it, the idea of it. So even the idea.
Yeah, that argument's probably worse, I think. Well, it depends on what he's trying to
doesn't make
argue, but that
sense.
argument's probably worse. It's probably worse because, okay, think about all the problems with this. So one, he's conceptualizing, and this is a thing I've seen that's common with how he argues, because he does sound good on the surface. Like everything he says rings of true in some sense. Like you're like, oh, that sounds right, and it makes sense. But he does a lot of equivocating and with his terms, and he's equivocating concepts with other things where there's not a direct parallel. So what he's doing though, so he's saying basically his argument is the idea of God saved you, and he treats that, he's like, you owe God something, and you wouldn't owe God something because on this idea of God is just a concept, so it wouldn't be anything to owe. But see how he's kind of equivocating all these words to make it sound, so it's breaking apart the distinctions that need to be made in order for it to be coherent. So one, treating God like a concept. I'm sure, like, I haven't seen the Muslim comments on this interview. I heard that Muslims were mad at it. I bet this was one part.
Some did, yeah. Some of them did complain, but they point out elsewhere that he does claim that he believes in God, right? And so they're saying, he's not treating God just like a concept. He's just trying to make a point for atheists. But if you go back to what he actually says, he's like, no, if they're complete pagans and they have a concept of a God who tells them not to eat you, you owe that God, even though it's not. Yeah. He's talking about it's not a real God. So he's talking about having obligations to a concept that doesn't correspond to anything that actually exists, and saying you are still. And he says let's go back and see what he said real quick. But yeah, he's saying it's a concept, but acting like you have moral obligations to this concept.
Exactly.
And so
that's where it's problematic. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, so that when they're saying in other places where he says, I would never tell a lie because I believe in God. And one, you're a compulsive liar. Yeah. But two, that actually fits if he's thinking of God as a concept and so on, and thinking that you can have moral obligations to the mere concept. That would fit with him saying, I believe in this and so on. But let's back this up real.
Right.
On one island, you and your friend are shipwrecked. On one island, your friend goes and he crashes, and they kill him and they eat him.
Let me go back a little further.
But you need to think of God as a concept as a whole. And once you do that, it's impossible to accept that he doesn't exist, right?
Notice there, once you believe in the concept, you have to accept the existence. But then the example he uses is a pagan god on an island, and he says, but he obviously doesn't believe that God exists, so yeah, this is incoherent.
That's why it's weird. Well, it's weird because he ascribes that's where the problematic aspect is, where he's ascribing the positive ontology to this God based off of just the concept, like an Anselm type argument or something. But the problem is because how he argues it too. So he starts by saying you have this concept of God, but the atheists would agree with this. You could believe that without thinking that you owe this God anything or that God doesn't exist. So atheists will agree that God can exist as a concept. Nobody's going to disagree with that. So it's like a failure to listen to what the atheist is actually saying. They're saying that they don't believe in God not as a concept, as a positive ontological being, And so the fact that he's saying that, it kind of misses the point of atheism. That's why I don't understand how it could be an argument against atheism to prove to an atheist that God exists, because he quite literally does not do that.
It doesn't. It's incoherent. And you could turn this on its head. What if you meet a tribe of the Agorti? This is a radical group in Hinduism that actually practices cannibalism because they're crazy. So if you actually approach them and they have something in their religion saying like, oh yeah, we're allowed to eat people, do you get to blame God for that? Do you get to say God is like the cause of evil now? Like it leads to absurdities.
And going along with what John pointed out, AP talked about this, and AP said, I believe in God as a concept, right? AP is an atheist saying, I believe it. If all you're saying is it's a concept. And really, before the rise of the new atheism, that was standard atheism back in the day. 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, standard. You had the angry people like Madeleine Murray O'Hair and so on. But your average atheist is like, hey, man, if believing that Jesus tells you to love everyone is helping you, guess what? That's good for me, too. So I don't know. There are atheists who would seem to be completely in line with what Andrew Tate is saying there. But let's get past this nonsense. But
I said to the atheist, I said, let's say there was two islands. You're shipwrecked, right? And there's 2 islands. Both of them are full of savages. On one island, you and your friend are shipwrecked. On one island, your friend goes and he crashes and they kill him and they eat him. And you go to another island and they want to kill you and eat you, but they don't because it's against their religion. Did God save your life? Who cares? Who doesn't even know the name of their God? But their God said, don't kill shipwrecked survivors. And now you're alive. So their God saved your life. The concept of God in and of itself saved your life. You owe God just for the concept of it, the idea of it.
You hear that? You owe that God just for being a concept. He just said that. You now are morally obligated to that concept of God for saving your life. And so later on and elsewhere, I don't even remember if we have it in this, if we'll be seeing it in this clip, but when in other places, when he talks about believing in Allah, guys, that actually fits completely with what he's saying here. And you could be a complete atheist saying that you believe in Allah when what you really mean is it's a good concept that is benefiting you in certain ways.
Yeah, I was thinking too. If I wasn't so tired, I could probably think this through better. But this I'm sure could be an argument for Christianity, the way he's using. So you can say that he owes the God of Christianity, and he believes in the God of Christianity because of something along the lines of probably the morality of the culture, the freedom of speech, or something like that he agrees in. Because if that's the case, if it's just the concept that matters, and if he can use that to prove to atheists that God exists, then you can prove the Christian God. We can prove that the Christian God exists to a Muslim. I don't see any reason why you couldn't.
Yeah, it sucks that he's getting us sidetracked with all this stupid, idiotic stuff because we're trying to look at his comments about Christianity, but I didn't want to be accused of just ripping it out of context and starting right where he starts, so I wanted to back up a little bit, but then it's all this nonsense. All right, let's see. I don't even remember where he... Let's go. Let's see.
So even the idea of opposing evil as a whole is a belief in God. So you're either an evil person or you believe in God in some regard.
So now if you oppose evil, which atheists in general would oppose at least some evil, right? We might disagree on the specifics and so on, but atheists would generally be opposed to quite a bit of evil. He's saying, I don't know what I don't know what he's saying.
It doesn't make sense. This is just a weird thing about it. He's think that sometimes if you oppose evil, you somehow believe in God in some regard. And you could make a deep metaphysical argument. That's
exactly what I'm thinking. That's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm thinking you can see in the direction he's going, you could put together an argument. He just skips like 37 steps that you need.
Yeah. It's I'd give this an F if this was like a paper in philosophy was turned into me, because there are so much missing elements for him to even get there. If you define God as the good, you say they're equated, to avoid something like the Euthyphro dilemma. You could say opposing evil means somehow that you are justified in believing God in some sense as a basis for but there's so many issues here with how he could go and what he's leaving out that this is just F in philosophy right away. It's horrible.
I have to say, if this was a first, because I used to teach philosophy of human nature and philosophical ethics, and yes, if someone said this the first week or something like that, you might say, hey, get your ideas together and do better. If someone said this by the end of the class or even halfway through the course, you'd be in a lot of trouble, because I'd be like, I have failed as a professor, and or you have not understood me, or you have just are really, really dumb. But it's something like that. But yeah, this is bad. All right. I want him to get to Christianity. Let's see.
And then once I understood that there had to be an equal and opposite force, I was raised Christian. I live in a Christian nation. Romania is actually, I think, the second or third most Christian country on earth. It's a very Christian country here. It's churches everywhere. They strongly believe. And that's where I began my journey. But I always had a very healthy respect for Islam, because I understand that to a degree, to have a religion at all, you have to have an intolerance to a degree. Because without an intolerance, you don't have rules. You don't have laws. You don't have any, like you said, you have to earn God's respect. If you're a religion which is tolerant of everything, then you don't have to earn God's respect. You can be a bad person and do bad things. God loves me, so it's fine.
By the way,
I was going to say, we are intolerant in Christianity. We're intolerant of child marriage, slavery, polygamy, murdering apostates, people that oppose freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of speech. So we are intolerant, Tate. I don't know what you're talking about. We're not in agreement when Muslims come out and say things like, well, we're intolerant of all these, of all these other things, but we're still going to tolerate child marriage and polygamy and torture and slavery. It's like, you got to provide more details here.
Yeah, G.K. Chesterton in Orthodoxy, he goes down a list and points out that opposite sides on every issue are accusing Christians of being opposite things. In other words, one side is saying, because don't Christians get constantly blasted for being intolerant here in the U.S.? We constantly get blasted for being intolerant, and yet Tate's blasting us. Muslims are blasting us for being too tolerant. Chesterton goes through a list of those. He's like, one side will say Christians are too violent, and the other side will say Christians are too pacifistic and peaceful. And it's like, guys, if two opposite extremes are both attacking you for opposite things, chances are they're the extremes and you're somewhere in the middle, right?
Exactly.
And
that's Christianity.
Yeah, you've got some level of balance, and so you're somewhere in the middle. And so the opposite, the extremes are both blasting you as extreme, even though it's like, well, yes, everyone's extreme compared to you because you're at the extreme. So everyone who's not at your extreme, you look at and you say, you're evil. But so notice, yeah, we get blasted simultaneously from different sides. Too tolerant and too intolerant, too violent, too peaceful. It's interesting. So we're catching it from Tate for being too tolerant.
Yeah, too woke, too conservative too, right?
Yeah.
Get those too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everything. Just pick a group and find out what they're attacking us for.
It's not, because that's not the point of the religion. So then you extrapolate that out, and I was sitting and thinking, well, what's the primary function of a religion? And the primary function of a religion, I don't believe, is the religion exists so I can live forever. I mean, that's a nice thought.
Me and AP actually saw this clip, and we looked up Surah 9, verse 111, which says that Allah gives you the garden in exchange for you fighting for him. So notice the point of it all is Allah giving you the garden, the paradise, and your virgins and so on. And Tate says it's a nice thought, but it's not what it's for. So what's it for? Let's find out.
I think on a macro level, the primary objective of a religion is to restore and contain some degree of traditional value within the society. How do you judge? Let me change the way I worded that. How do you judge the success of a religion? I don't think you can judge it by the number of people who join it, because there's lots of people who are Catholic who don't act Catholic. They don't act in any way particularly Christian. Anyone can say they're something. You can walk into a strip club and everyone says they're Christian. It doesn't mean anything, right? So how do you judge the success of a religion? Well, I like to think the best way to judge the success of a religion is how successful is it at fighting evil? How successful is it at preserving the morality of a population in X parameter?
Okay.
How is this dumb? And what's interesting is I think John and Mike, I think you guys go in very different directions. I think John is thinking in terms of that's not how you would judge a religion and so on. And I think IP goes along the lines of, if that's what you're saying is the standard of a good religion, let me tell you about Christianity.
Right.
Well, kind of. I would also add that Christianity or religion is not just about preserving tradition. Yeah. Sometimes religions need to be radical to cause reform. This is Christianity. Christianity was not built on preserving order and tradition. Jesus said, do not think I've come to bring peace. I came to bring a sword. And what he meant is he came to wage war on the institutions and ideologies of the world at that time. You know, the world that promoted slavery, that promoted abusing children, that had gladiator shows and oppressed women and kept them down as second-class citizens. Christianity was very much like, no, we need to abolish these institutions to make a better world. And so there's a great paper, for example, that's called Do Not Sexually Abuse Children by John W. Martins. And what he notes is
that completely goes against Islam.
Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, but that's what this is what early Christians were doing, is that throughout the Roman Empire, children were boys and girls were being used for sex. That's just kind of what they were for. Christians said, no, these are image bearers of the one true God. You just can't abuse them. They're only allowed to have sex in marriage, a marriage they enter in willingly when they're an adult, both participants willingly enter in, not just one, sort of has another one as like the property. And so John Martins points out that Christians were radically destroying the Roman traditions of the time period. They were radically breaking them down. Tom Holland, in his book Dominion, for example, notes that Christianity was stepping on the toes of patriarchs everywhere. Why? Well, because the church said, women are the image of God. They should be allowed to marry whoever they want. They're not just property of their patriarch or father, and they can be traded off for family relations or tribal ties. So they started marrying couples in secret. A woman would, be part of a wealthy family. She'd fall in love and she'd run away and the church would marry. This is where marriage witnesses come in, because the church needed witnesses to some of these marriages because their fathers were not acknowledging the marriages. So the church would make you have witnesses there so that you could back up the idea the marriage was actually performed and then later consummated, because this is what the church was doing. They were giving rights to women. So sometimes religions need to be radical, not all the time. But sometimes they do need to preserve traditions, but sometimes they need to be radical and overturn old pagan traditions that were about abusing children or enslaving people or oppressing women. Christianity toppled all these. And this is what scholars like John Martins, Tom Holland, Rodney Stark, Robert Woodbury have noted.
And notice the insane inconsistency again. The pagans of Muhammad's time had various practices like tossing female infanticide. So the job of their religion should have been to preserve their morality, to preserve female infanticide. And the success of the religion would be based on how good a job they did of that. How good a job did they do of preserving female infanticide? And they didn't, because Islam stopped it. But notice, if the goal is just to preserve the morality of the culture, then Islam should have preserved that and defended it. And instead, Muslims look at that and say, look, Muhammad said, don't do that. Oh, okay. So a religion can actually say, don't do those things. Those things are bad, and topple those things. I agree. But that's not what Tate is saying. And so I don't know. So the pagans should have looked at this as bad. But at the end of the day, two things. One, things like communism do a bang-up job. Things like communism do a bang-up job of preserving the values of that culture, because they'll throw you in jail if you get out of line, right? They'll lock you up. When they look at in communist China, for instance, what happens when they say Muslims are actually at odds with our morality? They send them to camps. I view that as horrible. So, but according to Tate, it would be great because they're doing it to preserve their values and so on. So I don't know. This is just weird and insane.
There's research I have other papers here on Islam, for example. So there's one interesting paper here called Borders That Divide: Education and Religion in Ghana and Togo Since Colonial Times. And the authors note that what was happening is that there was a lot of competition going on in Africa between Protestants and Catholics. How were they competing? Not with swords, but with education. They would go into areas and they'd be like, we're going to educate all these children. And the Protestants would then come and go, no, we need to educate the children. So they were competing with each other almost in a pseudo-capitalistic style to provide better education for the people there so they could get more converts. You know what was holding them back? Was Islam. Muslims are saying, you can't come in here because you're going to educate our women and our girls, and we don't want that. And so they note in the paper that what was slowing down education in Africa was actually indirectly, it was Islam, because Islam was like, no, we don't want Christians in here. We don't want you educating. And so the Muslims will say, well, that was because they wanted to protect their religion. Fine, but why weren't you educating your people? Why was it the Christians that were coming into these regions and wanting to educate? We can also cite Bruce Ryan's infamous paper that Daniel Hakikachu cited for years on hebephilia as a mental disorder. He has this big, long survey about how homosexual hebephilia was rampant around the world, including many Islamic societies. In fact, in Albania, Muslims had this practice of boy brides, and they were actually like exporting it to the Christians there. Meanwhile, Ryan also notes that Christians were going around the world in the form of missionaries mostly, and they were finding these practices of man-boy love, and they were getting rid of it. They were saying, no, we're taking the children. You can't abuse them anymore. I don't care that you've been doing this for thousands of years. So Christianity was going around ending things like slavery, child brides, boy brides. Meanwhile, Islam was actually trying to export it to Christians in Albania. They note the Sawans of Libya, for example, was just a well-entrenched practice they had for years. It was rampant throughout Islamic societies. So I mean, like, if he wants to talk about what's actually been fighting evil, Christianity has been by far the biggest religion fighting evil across the board. The Catholic Church is still the world's largest non-governmental healthcare provider.
It sounds like what
Yeah,
he really. Oh, go ahead, John.
Oh, I was just gonna say real quick. I think the words here are different because what he's saying when he says fighting evil, he doesn't mean it in the way we're thinking of it, like donating to charities and, and stuff like this, right? I think he actually means. Well, it depends. I mean, maybe he's not clear on his terms, so maybe I don't want to go as far to put words in his mouth. But I think what he's referring to is like because the question is how, right? So you can say, okay, this society's preserving morality, their moral ethics, by the way, too. But how are they preserving it? Well, if they're doing it by the sword and killing apostates and, and throwing homosexuals off of roofs and all these other things like that, is that really preserving morality in a moral way, right? Or is it just like forcing people? You're not preserving when you're forcing. I mean, you can say that, but you say the same thing in, communistic regimes or all of these other places like, because there's a part in the interview where he talks about if you raise your kids in Saudi Arabia, you don't have to worry about the LGBTQ stuff. But I'm like, but he argues in such isolated ways because I'm like, okay, you're in a place where LGBT stuff is, it's illegal. But at the same time, you also have no freedoms for all of these other things. So if you value freedom, that's an American ethic. But some of the other people, or it's a Western ethic rather. But yeah, so anyway, so the question I think really comes down to how, and then just the other thing I'd make, and I won't elaborate on here, is if the way he describes religion, the purpose of religion, then I would just say, okay, well, in that definition, Christianity is not a religion in that sense because it's not its primary purpose. Its primary purpose is far deeper and far greater than that. Now go ahead with your point. My bad.
Oh, no, you're good. Yeah, I just wanted to point out along the lines of what you were pointing out, John, that if you're making people do what you want with threats of violence, have you really made them moral? Or let me give an example. If I'm walking outside and I see a little old lady trying to cross the street, and I help the old lady cross the street because I believe that's a good thing to do, that's the right thing to do, then you can say I've done the right thing. If someone puts a gun to my head and says, help that old lady across the street, and I do it, I've done what would be the right thing, but I'm doing it because you're going to blow my brains out if I don't. So in that sense, what have I done? What morally right thing have I done? I've done something out of fear of being killed. And you see this so anyway, the point is in Muslim countries, if the only reason you're not committing adultery is because you're worried about getting stoned to death or something like that, that's different from saying, I'm not going to commit adultery because I believe it's wrong, That's why I'm not going to do it. And what you find is if you spend your entire life in a culture where the only reason for doing the right thing or avoiding the wrong thing is fear of being, beheaded or something like that, you never develop any sort of morality of your own, right? You don't learn to do the right thing for the right reason. And you see the results when someone without a head covering or something like that walks down the street in Egypt and a crowd forms around her and they start losing their minds. Or even sometimes they'll just the entire mob will just grab her and start groping her and even raping her. That happened to Laura Logan. So that's the problem. And then you take someone who's been in an environment his entire life where the only reason for doing something or not doing something is fear of being, getting your head chopped off. And then you say, oh, now we're going to toss you in the UK. And what happens? You start getting these rape gangs and things like that. And you start wondering, hey, what's going on here? Why are these people behaving like this? And well, there's a reason. It's your religion did not actually fight evil. Your religion kept people from developing any real concept of doing the right thing for the right reason. And so I'd view that as a problem. The other issue there is, it sounds like what Tate really means is a religion is going to stop change, right? It's not going to stop evil. It's going to stop change or progress, right?
Yeah.
And yet Islam does a bang up job at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
I mean, yeah, because
bad.
even if,
like, We want change sometimes. Sometimes, like right now, does everyone want to live in the current world we are forever? No, I think I want to get to a place where slavery and child trafficking are relics of the past, like gladiator shows.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get there. So no, we can't have religions that just stop all change. We need religion like Christianity that promotes change, but it still has guardrails on how to promote that change. We can't go to the extreme woke side. We can't go to the extreme Islamic side, but we still need change. So we have my pastor once said, like, the Bible is really great because it has guardrails on everything. It says, like, like things like respect government, but also that doesn't mean you always have to submit to what they tell you to do. Like, you need to respect family, and we need to promote family, but that doesn't mean if if your parents tell you to go do something evil, you go and do it. There's guardrails. So you find a verse in one place that tells you this is okay, there's going to be a guardrail somewhere else in scripture that's going to help put that in context. So that's Christianity right there.
What were you going to say, John?
And I think that there's an issue because I mean, I've seen some people in the comments are like, well, Christianity's become so weak in the West. All these things, and when I keep hearing these things, I'm always thinking, like, what are you talking about? So you have Christianity. At the heart of Christianity, you have self-sacrificial love, right? That's the core thing there. You have God who chose to put on human flesh, come into our world, and make himself a sacrifice for our sins. So it's self-sacrificial love. And then so this idea of masculinity that Andrew Tate and them promote is like, oh, Christianity is soft because they don't kill people basically for not obeying the Christian commands. And that's just so dumb to me, because I even they'll talk about, oh yeah, your God got, crucified, ha ha ha. But I'm like, anybody, to me, what's weak, like, this is why I think, like, Andrew Tate, what a lot of the stuff he says when he says this stuff, to me, it just sounds incredibly beta. Because if you're going to say Christianity is weak just because we don't kill people out of retaliation, because people make fun of stuff or whatever, that to me is strength. Because insecurity is what says, hey, you make fun of me or you make fun of my prophet, I'm going to just burn your entire city down. You draw a picture, I'm going to burn your entire city down, I'm going to kill everybody. That to me is weak. That's, now that I'm thinking about it, that's actually how Tate talks about simps, right? When he talks about simps, like, the simps are emotionally being manipulative in order to try to force women into having sex with them, right? Like, hey, I was nice, I did all of these things, therefore you should have sex with me, right? That's how the simps act, right? When he complains about simps. But is that not how he thinks that, like, Islam is ran in a different way, in some way, and even on his view of, like, oh, that workspace salvation in that sense, So in my mind, it just doesn't make sense, because he can identify it as beta behavior when it comes to women, but then when it comes to Islam, he seems like he can't identify it as beta behavior as well.
Oh, this is a common problem in all of Tate's thinking. He's always looking at something and he'll say, aha, what about, like, same thing with the look, there's a gay pastor. You see, this is why you need to reject Christianity. Well, what about that gay imam? Well, we'll ignore that. Yeah. So anyway, the point, guys, I'm not even at this point making any point about right and wrong. I'm making a point about consistency. He's massively inconsistent. So as far as the issue of progress, and we'll go and watch some more. Yeah. It was actually viewed before Christianity, it was very common to think of your culture as what's granting stability and preserving the way things have always been. And I talked about this in a video. J. Robert Oppenheimer, so he's the father of the atomic bomb, was not a Christian, was raised as a secular Jew, eventually got interested in, like, Far Eastern religions. But he, in an article, he was trying to explain why the scientific revolution took place in Christian Europe. And he attributed it, he said, because there's always this idea of progress. There was an idea of progress that was built into Christianity that wasn't there before. And so I said there's a lot more to it than that. But I was looking at it, he's actually right that you had this idea of constantly striving to make things better. So you look at it, and Christians start off and, hey, there are these kids going around and no one wants to take care of them. Let's invent orphanages. Hey, there are sick people. We want to take care of them. Let's invent hospitals. Hey, we want places for learning. Let's invent universities. And some of this stuff is happening when really, really bad stuff is happening. I mean, they're getting hit with the bubonic plague, and then, hey, the Renaissance right after that, and then the scientific revolution. And they just kept advancing down through history. And if the goal had been to preserve the status quo of the first century, you wouldn't have seen any of that. And you actually see what it does in the Muslim world, where the entire goal of the religion, it's the creator of the universe wants you to walk and talk and think and go to the bathroom like a 7th century Arab. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, guess
Yeah.
what? You're probably not going to make a ton of progress like that unless you
Yeah.
get that, unless it comes from without, because the goal of your religion is to keep everything the same.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Let's go back to the tater.
X geographical area. So when you look at it from that way, you can't say that Islam isn't the most successful religion on earth. It's the
Yeah, we
most
can.
successful in regards to opposing evil. It's the most
Wrong.
successful in regards to opposing its differing viewpoints. It's the most successful in regards to having people act within the limits and the confines of what it finds to be moral and good to God. It's the most adhered to. It's the most feared. It's the most respected in most forms. And then
The only thing I could grant there, and I think the interview points out, he goes, yeah, most feared. So it's like the only thing, because that's the one that'll kill you.
Well, all of that
Yeah,
is
how's
done
that a
through,
good
like, I
thing?
mean, all of that is done by, like, I mean, what is the way that these things are accomplished? So if you say that, what was the list? I'm so tired right now. I'm trying. So the list was, they're the most adhered to, followed, respected, feared. What was the other ones?
I can go
remember?
back. I can get you that info right now. Check this out.
Moral, yeah,
of
yeah.
a population in X parameter, in X geographical area. So when you look at it from that way, you can't say that Islam isn't the most successful religion on earth. It's the most successful in regards to opposing evil. It's the most successful in regards to opposing its differing viewpoints. It's the most successful in regards to having people act within the limits and the confines of what it finds to be moral and good to God. It's the most adhered to. It's the most feared. It's the most respected in most forms. And then also I'd like to
Yeah, all he's talking about there is people being afraid because of violence. I mean, people are afraid of violence in these areas and stuff like that. Is that a win? Is that actually preserving morality? No, that's not preserving morality, because you're threatening to kill people for not wearing, or throwing acid on women's face for not wearing a hijab. To me, that's not preserving morality, because that's to underestimate the sinful nature and the evilness in all humans. It's not like the people who are running the show are these great, outstanding, perfectly moral beings. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I don't see that as a win. I genuinely don't. But go ahead.
Again, there's so much research that just contradicts Tate on this. I mean, it's just staggering. I mean, take the study, The Influence of Religion on Interstate Armed Conflict, Government Religious Preferences, and First Use of Force, 1946 to 2002. They looked at 3 religions, Christianity, Buddhism, and Islam. What they found was that Buddhism is non-significant. It doesn't correlate with an increase in war or a decrease. Christianity negatively correlated with an increase in war. So more Christianity, less war. Islam was positively associated with an increase in war. I mean, so it actually led to more conflict. It led to more war. Or take Roland to Salem's paper, the role of Protestantism in democratic consolidation among transitional states. Looked at Islam, Protestantism, and Catholicism. Protestantism correlated with more political stability, political transformation, citizen empowerment, voice and accountability in government. Catholicism correlated with a lot of those, with most of those as well. Islam negatively correlated with those, although most of it was still at least in the non-significant range. But still, it was still in the negative side. So Islam was leading to more interstate armed conflict, less political stability than what we see in Christianity, less voice and accountability in government than what we see in Christianity. So what is he talking about? If you just go through the data, you can see over and over again that Christianity always leads to better outcomes when it's compared side by side with Islam on a national level. So he's just absolutely wrong here on multiple ways.
IP, does this guy seem like the sort of guy who goes through the data?
No, he just makes things off the top of his head based on what he thinks is right.
He said the things he's saying right now sounds exactly like a Dawa script. It sounds like he listened to some Dawa guy about Islam is the only thing that stands against evil, or it's the best at it, and no actual studying on what he's even talking about here. I mean, think about this. I mean, is Muslim countries eventually, not in every area, but in generally, when they abolished slavery, it was because of Western pressure. When they started setting minimum ages for marriage, it was because of Western pressure. Other than that, places are just living according to the standards of Muhammad, they're never getting any better in their treatment of women and so on. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, when British abolitionists went to Morocco, Tom Holland talks about this in his book Dominion. They were trying to abolish slavery, and one of the regional leaders there said, "Well, we can't abolish slavery; it's against our religion." And yeah, what happened is eventually Western came in and said, "Nuh-uh, no." Robert Woodbury, in his paper "The Shadow of the Empire," notes that what they did in India was they raised the minimum age to 12. Now, I emailed Woodbury about this because I thought that was still too young. And he's like, well, they were compromising. When they raised the minimum marriage age in India to 12 in the 1890s, there were riots from Hindus and Muslims because that was going against their religious ideas. And Christians said, no, 12. No, we're in charge now. You're not going to keep raping children. And then, of course, over the following decades, up until the present, they kept increasing that. No, it's got to be older now. It's got to be older now. So it was this slow progress of making them move away from child marriage and these kinds of things. Robert Woodbury has a lot of data on this kind of stuff happening throughout Christian missionary activity.
yeah, so you're saying that the progress in the Muslim world comes from without, not from within.
A lot of it. I will give credit to where credit is due. They did contribute to the scientific revolution in certain ways, not as much as Christian Europe did, but they did help in certain ways. But a lot of the progress, especially moral progress, came from the outside, yes.
All right, let's get some more Tater wisdom from the Tater.
I would say it's the most feared.
Yeah, it's the most feared.
That was funny. He jumped in. I would say it's the most feared.
But what
You're
is
gonna agree with the other
fear?
ones.
Yeah. As for the other ones, not so much.
Do we respect men we don't fear? If there's a man who could do absolute.
I mean, I do.
This sounds
terrified.
insane. Do we respect someone we don't fear? Guys, are there people you respect that you don't fear? I respect both of you. I do not fear either one of you at all.
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
I think I could take both of you at the same time with no problem. That is not. Just, I grew up in West Virginia.
You know I'm a second.
Pretty sure you're gonna take me, but you know. Yeah, but I mean that's the thing though too, because I did a video. Oh my God! I did a video a while back on Tate, and if you look at the commonality too, and you can see this in personality stuff and all that, but the commonality in a lot of the stuff he says has to do with power and control. And then when you listen to all the stuff he says, and this was so I did a video. It's called, I can't remember what it's called, but if you just type in Andrew Tate, it's one of them. But on that video though, you see this theme because this is how the filter in which he's looking through all of these different issues. He's like, who's better at exerting power and staying in control? Oh, Islam. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I could say more about that, but we'll keep going. You go ahead.
It's all about power. It doesn't make sense. Power is not necessarily always used well. And if your entire focus of your religion is getting power, preserving the order of the past, and attacking anyone that stands against that, that's not good necessarily. I mean, unless your religion is already perfect, and there's a lot, I would challenge that on multiple ways. That's not necessarily a good thing. It cannot always be about power and fear. I'm very terrified of being encountered by like a tribe in a remote region of the Agari, this group in Hinduism I talked about earlier, because they're a radical group that's okay with cannibalism. So just because I'm afraid of them, does that make them a better religion? That doesn't follow.
Yeah, and it's just weird. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, just one sentence. I was going to say in his BBC interview, his recent one, the woman asked him if he respects women. He says, "Oh, I absolutely respect women." Now, does that mean he fears women? I doubt it. You know, so clearly here, I mean,
Top G fear is scared of getting beat up by women.
That's what I mean. I mean, it's possible maybe he's speaking in different contexts here and it's relevant, but I mean, if that's your argument, it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But go ahead.
Oh, by the way, AP, if you're still around here, I'm seeing you in the chat. AP, I was watching a video by Bruce Rivers, who's a lawyer. He's been commenting on things, and he's criticized the Romanian government repeatedly for the way they've acted. So he seems to not be picking a side in the issue. He's pointing out flaws in either side. But it's interesting because Andrew Tate in his BBC interview, she said, "Oh, and on your website you say," and you have claimed, he said, "I didn't, that's not my website. I've never said that. I've never done any of that." And she pointed out that you manipulate women emotionally to get them to become your cam girls. He said, "Oh, I've never done that." Even though there are all kinds of videos on him saying that's exactly what his method is. It's like, why is he lying when it's so easy to expose? Bruce Rivers was, according to Bruce Rivers, I'm not exactly sure what the law in Romania is, but he's saying as far as the legal understanding of human trafficking, it's yes, you're getting someone to do something sexual, whether it's porn or prostitution or something like that, but it involves force, fraud, or coercion. Force, fraud, or coercion. So, like when one of the accusations against Tate is that they would put the women in debt once they got over there, and the only way to get out of debt is to work as the webcam girls and so on. So that would be coercion. Saying you're not allowed to leave the house, we're taking your passport and so on, that would be coercion. But so we already knew all that. As far as Tate saying that was never my method, it also involves fraud. He was saying, yes, if you tell a girl, hey, I want you to be my webcam girl and I've got a business and so on, and she agrees, okay, that's one thing. If you lure her to a country on false pretenses of love and relationship and so on, and you're actually gearing her, manipulating her into becoming a webcam girl, he said that's a different story. He said now you're doing it by fraud, and he said that is human trafficking. So the point is, that's why he's denying that was his method. As soon as he says and by the way, that's probably why the BBC was trying to get him to acknowledge it. They're trying to get him to say, yes, you did this through emotional manipulation. Oh, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And the BBC was trying to get him to basically confess to the fraud element, in which case that would be used in court. And he is aware of that. So that's why he denied it, even though he's got tons of videos saying that's his method. Because notice, it would be, if someone accused you of using the lover boy method, just getting someone to fall in love with you in order for you to take advantage of them, it'd be very hard to prove that. You could say, of course I really loved her. What are you talking about? But this idiot's been admitting it for years. Right? He's been saying it. He's been teaching that as the method. So this dude's in trouble according to the law. So he better hope that his bribes work. All right, let's jump into some more Tater. Well, look at his face, by the way. So it's a funny spot to freeze.
Nothing to you on any level at all. You might be nice to him, sure, because we're not bad people. But would you really respect him? If you could take his chick in front of his face, set his car on fire, and he wouldn't do a thing. You wouldn't respect him. You might be nice to him because we're not bullies, but you wouldn't respect him. Respect and fear are linked. They're not always the same thing, and you can maybe have fear without respect, but it's very hard to have respect without fear. And also, I heard someone say once that we see the world as we see ourselves. If you're a thief, you think everyone's a thief. If you're a liar, you think everyone's a liar. And I kind of agree with that.
If you're a top G, you think of everyone as a top G. Wrong.
I also like to think we see religion as we see ourselves. I like to see myself as a person whose respect you have to earn. I like to see myself as a person who has strong, rigid boundaries. I like to see myself as a person who will stand up and say, no, that's wrong. I like to see myself as a person who's not afraid of being shamed by whatever community for saying, I don't agree with that particular ideal. I like seeing myself that way. So if I'm going to see myself that way, then I'm going to naturally align with a religion that operates within that form. So when I say Islam is the last religion on earth, I say it because
looks like you got something to say. I did want to point out, I haven't made a video on this, but it's actually relevant. In Paul Vitz's, so the psychologist, Paul Vitz's Faith of the Fatherless, he points out how closely linked people's concept of their father is to their concept of God. And people who have abusive fathers or fathers who abandon them, they tend to think of God in one way. Have a very negative view, and people who had very close, loving relationships with fathers that they respected tends to view God in a different way. But what's interesting is if you listen to Andrew Tate, describe his father and how he viewed his father, it's almost identical to what he says about God right now. So anyway, I find those kinds of things interesting. But go ahead, IP.
Yeah. I think it's just interesting. He wants to be a part of a religion that he thinks most aligns with who he is. And it's like you're aligning with a religion where the Dawagandists are basically saying, yeah, we're okay with child marriage and slavery and against freedom of religion. So we're going to kill all the apostates by executing them. I mean, it's like, do you realize what you're saying here? Like, this is not like a good look. And he's also been on record, him and Tate, saying that they've gone after like 15 and 16-year-old girls. So it's like, yeah, you fit right in, buddy. I mean, what are you doing? This is the image you want to put out there, that you or the way you do with trafficking is really also the face of Islam. Like, this is wild.
And his position is completely incoherent because I think it's in this clip that we're going to be watching, but he says, and of course, no one should be killed over these things. No one should be killed over this. Like, no. That is exactly Islam's solution for everything you're talking about. Other people have different solutions, and you're saying those other solutions don't work, but don't kill people, which is the Islamic solution, and you're going to defend. It's like, my goodness.
Yeah.
All right. Wow.
Seems to be the only one who will stand up and say, no, we don't care. No, that's not what the book says. No. I was raised Christian and Muslim.
First of all,
No,
let's just
wrong,
say-
wrong IP. Muslims are the only ones who would ever stand up for what they believe.
Yeah, Christians are definitely not standing up going, no, child marriage is wrong. That's what the Bible says. No, polygamy is wrong. That's what we see. You can find descriptions of it in the Old Testament where it was just tolerated, but in the New Testament, no, this is the final marching orders. No more. Wrong. Slavery, final marching orders. No more. That's gone. This is why Christians have been at the forefront of abolitionist movements. So no, we are standing up to a lot of the evil. The problem is that a lot of the people trying to fight and promote a lot of that evils, at least what I've seen in the past couple months, is Muslims. Like, they're the ones saying, no, child marriage, polygamy, slavery, these are all fine. And we're going,
Wife
no,
beating.
this goes against the ethics that we see in the New Testament. No, we're putting a foot down. We're not going to tolerate that. And they're like, no, join with us. We need your help to fight the woke crowd. No, we're not joining with you because we're not going to replace a woke dystopia for a Handmaid's Tale dystopia, Islam style. So no, we are putting our foot down and we're not joining with them over this stuff.
And John, did you want to?
I was going to say something. I was just going to say, I want everybody kind of watching to pay attention to why Andrew Tate is so persuasive. He's persuasive because he'll start with things that people have a natural, like, intuitive desire. He's very aware of, like, what it is that people value, and then he'll use those things, and then he tries to build his case off of them. But the logic is always spotty. So it's like, so he has these things where you're like, oh, okay, I agree with that. Yeah, I don't like people pushing me around, right? And then he knows his audience too, because a lot of them is going to be either a lot of conservatives who are like, hey, we're tired of being pushed around, you know what I mean, by the woke and the LGBT stuff or whatever. So he'll appeal to them the same way he'll appeal to these men that want to be more masculine, who are tired of being pushed around and feeling like they don't have a good say in society. But he'll build off of those things, and then he'll use these concepts and equivocations and all these other things, these loopholes where it's more fuzzy. So he'll start with the ethics, the values that people hold, and he'll build on top of those with these things, and it's very conceptual, and it sounds as if it naturally follows from what he's saying. But if you actually sit there and analyze it in a strict logical sense, then you're starting to realize that he's doing tons of equivocating and non sequiturs. The conclusion doesn't follow from what he's saying, and so on. But he's very persuasive because he's very good at that, and he speaks with confidence too. So it's like, it makes people think, but like, man, he must know what he's talking about. I can't disagree with that. Look how sure he sounds, you know. So there's an emotional and psychological component that really makes him super persuasive. And Tate says a lot of things that are right. You know what I mean? He's not wrong about everything. You know what I mean?
No, he says tons of things. He says tons of things. And I've pointed out before, it's like, guys, because I'll say, hey, look, Andrew Tate just said this awful thing. This is horrible. This is a really, really bad thing to say. And the response will be, but he's right about such and such. The media. Like, he's right. He points out the hypocrisy of the media. It's like, he's correct on the media, right? The way they'll attack him, but if you're on their side and you've molested children or something like that, they're going to treat you with kid gloves. He's totally right. But that's pretty much anyone who gets the reins of the media. If a bunch of Andrew Tate fans all of a sudden took over CNN, guess what? He's going to be their golden god, and everyone on the opposite side of him is going to be pure evil. People are going to do that. So anyway, he says, of course, he says things that are completely correct. But think about this. I mean, let's suppose, whether Islam or Christianity, suppose the Antichrist shows up. Do you think he's going to be saying stuff that is 100% wrong?
Yeah, all the time? No.
Yeah, I would guess when something like that comes along, he's going to be saying like 99.8% stuff that you completely agree with, and that other 0.2% is going to be demonic evil. Because that's what's going to be. Notice, the idea of a counterfeiter is to make something look as good as possible, look as real and good as possible. And the better you are, the more right you can make that $100 bill look, the more people you're going to deceive with it.
Yeah.
And by the way, the way that you spot counterfeit bills, they do this in banks so that they can spot counterfeit bills. The first thing they sit these guys down with is they sit them down with a pile of real bills and say, get your hands all over this stuff, learn it really, really well. So Andrew.
Yeah.
Andrew.
Oh yeah. And just real quick on that, people think that I think people sometimes aren't aware of like what we're doing when we respond to Tate, because I have no personal whatever towards Tate at all. I don't really care. What I'm doing is I'm responding to the things that he says against Christianity, because I think he's misleading people's perception about religion as a whole, and especially Christianity. So that's my mission. So if Tate's right on all of this other stuff, that's fine. You know, it doesn't matter to me. I don't have a problem with Tate personally at all. If you notice, I don't. I'm always talking about his arguments that he's making. I never talk about Tate personally because I just don't care. That's not my mission, you know? So when people say that, I think they kind of misunderstand what the purpose is. We're not here saying, trying to just talk about Andrew Tate just to talk about him. If that was the case, then maybe we would mention the good and the bad, or the right and the wrong and that sort of thing too. But we're talking about what he's saying about Christianity specifically. So, and he's typically wrong about Christianity almost every time he talks, which is why it sounds like we never agree with him. But yeah.
And this is by the way, this is just an ongoing problem in our society, that everything is becoming so clicked up into various groups that you can't agree with, like, people. I get that with AP all the time. Oh, you're a Christian and atheist. How can you be doing the same live stream? It's like, because we agree on what we're talking about. In other areas, we talk about what we disagree with, but that's not going to stop us from saying we agree on something. It's like the mentality is, if someone's in a different group, you can't agree with them on anything. It's like, well, what if they say 2 + 2 is 4? Well, you can't agree with them on that. You can't agree. You can't have any common ground. Everything has to be hostility. And so it's like, if we're saying this, an extension of that mentality is, if we're saying Tate is wrong about what he says about Christianity, we must be saying he's wrong about everything he's ever said. And no, I mean, if he's telling young people, stop sitting around all day playing video games and do something with your life, okay, I can agree there. Okay, what are we supposed to do? You're supposed to start a webcam business and get a Bugatti. It's like, okay, I don't agree with that. Oh, but he was right about this.
Yeah, and a quick note, just to someone in the comments says, why are there 300 variant versions of the Christian Bibles and none used to match the original Koine Greek, New Testament, or Hebrew scripture sources?
Why would you
But here's the thing, though. No, because here's the point I want to make is this. This is why we respond to these videos too. Andrew Tate, people like this, they're hearing this from these Dawa guys. They're hearing all of these lies, all of these things that are completely not true, which you would know if you listen to anybody on the other side. But people are always so conditioned to only listening to the people that agree with them that you can get away with stuff like that. Because the objections I hear from the Muslims and all the comments all the time are the worst objections to Christianity, because it's things no Christian believes. And so it's easy to attack, but because they're only listening to these Dawa guys most of the time, then they think that these are actually true things. So that's like the problem, I think, with the internet as a whole too. It's not specific to Islam, but that's, I think, the problem is people actually need to really intentionally try to understand the other side. Well, I think too. I think we need to do that more. Everybody does, but yeah.
The comment doesn't even make sense. How do you? We don't have any original manuscripts. How do you know they don't match? And if you do anything on New Testament textual criticism, you'll see that scholars like Dan Wallace have, for example, noted that there is no evidence any Christian doctrines have changed, and the New Testament is quite reliable to what was originally written. You can see this in the work of people like C.L. Porter, for example. So what the heck is this guy talking about?
Well, apparently this is someone who gets his biblical knowledge from Sneeko. And why'd you guys take out the book of the Council of Nicaea, huh? Yeah, like Sneeko said.
Explain that one.
Burn Christianity. But John, you did. There is this ongoing problem of like, we like this personality, we like what he's saying here, therefore we're just going to believe everything he says on every topic, even though the slightest bit of investigation would show that he's spouting complete nonsense and has no clue what he's talking about. But that's standard. That's why he fits so well into this area. Is that standard Dawa approach, right? Yeah. I mean, going back, like Zakir Naik was, if you have any clue, if you know the topics that he's talking about, he is spouting complete idiotic nonsense. I mean, Nabil once made a video, Zakir Naik 25 mistakes in 5 minutes. He watched. I remember that. He watched a 5-minute video of Zakir Naik talking about science and so on. And Zakir Naik is just making things up. He's making people up. He's making up everything he says. Zakir Naik knows his audience is so enthralled by him, they're not going to question anything he says. And guys, that to say, whatever the position, that can happen to anyone. You could love a Christian speaker so much that you just believe anything he says, even if he's wrong. So that could happen. It just seems to be like an especially huge problem in like Dawa and these new influencer converts that
Yeah.
there's it's either they're deliberately deceiving people, or they're just so incredibly sloppy they don't know what they're talking about and they're making idiotic
Yeah.
arguments. But you like the personality so much you just believe whatever he says, and that's an ongoing problem. Is that they're feeding people's narcissism, and later on when the guys go off the deep end and say something you can't accept, it's too late. You can't stop them because
Yeah.
they've conditioned an entire community to shout down anyone who questions them. And so, like right now,
Yeah.
if you're a Top G fan and you said, "Hey, I got a problem with what he said right there," you're going to get shouted down. You're going to be attacked for it.
Yeah.
And
And that's the thing too. I mean, even in videos, because when I did the first Sneeko video, I had a lot of Muslim channels responding to it, and I listened to a lot of them, and all of them were saying, "Oh, this guy doesn't know anything about Islam. He thinks we worship Muhammad." But I'm like, if you listen, I never once said worship Muhammad. But the thing is, that was the number
I'll say
one
it.
comment from Muslims I got. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can say it. That's your argument more. But that's the number one comment I got from Muslims. It's like, "Oh, you said we worship Muhammad," and I'm like, quote me saying it. Nobody will quote me because they're not listening to what I'm saying. They're only listening to what their guys are saying and then try to write comments on the videos. But I mean, this is a thing that I dealt with atheists and stuff too. And so it's like, this is an internet problem. I'm sure people deal with it on the non-Christian sides too, but it's just a problem with, I think, the internet as a whole. But it does seem, to me, I feel like it's particularly bad. Maybe it's just more recently with dealing
No,
with Islam
I
more, but it
agree
seems that
with
way.
you. No, I agree with you. When I get video responses from Muslim, it's like they didn't even listen to what I said.
Yeah.
It's so out of context. It's
Yeah.
so like, let me take the least charitable way to interpret your words. And it's just like, this is a disaster. Is it even worth my time to respond to this? No, probably not. I'm going to get on with more important things.
And by the way,
Right.
IP along these lines. So the idea that these guys are just listening to what their guy, whoever their hero happens to be, and they'll just mindlessly go around repeating this stuff, which has been going on for years. I mean, the claims you hear about the Bible, it's most of it goes back to like Ahmed Deedat and Zakir Naik.
Yeah.
People have no clue what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so you've got that, but you've got this ongoing issue. IP. Let me check with you and see if you've gotten this, because I've been getting this over and over and over again ever since Daniel came out with the response that basically anything that was not part of the first century is liberalism and atheism. And so anything you defend as far as, hey, I don't believe in child brides, I don't believe in wife beating and so on, I don't believe in this. It's that's because liberal atheism, and you're actually a liberal atheist in disguise. Have you gotten that? I'm saying that because I get that now. Anytime I say, "Hey, this is wrong," oh, you got that from liberal atheism, as if liberal atheists are the only people who would ever say, "Don't beat your wife."
Yeah, this is coming from Daniel, where if you don't agree with him on all of his insanity, you're a liberal. You've been brainwashed by the
You're going to
liberals.
be eating. You're going to be eating bugs.
It's insane. It's insanity. He has brainwashed all these Muslims to think that anything that stands against what he says is liberalism, and he knows nothing about Christian history or Christian ethics.
Nothing.
He did a live stream where he was attempting to respond to me, and it was a disaster. But he tried to say that virtue ethics, this is an idea, a normative ethics, is pretty popular in philosophy. He was saying that virtue ethics was it was because of the Enlightenment and John Locke. And it just shows how ignorant he is about philosophy, because virtue ethics didn't come out until G.E.M. Anscombe revived it in the 1950s. John Locke didn't talk about virtue ethics. It shows how little. What he ended up doing was citing John Locke, basically quoting Paul for all the laws, some that you shall love thy neighbor as thyself. And he's like, see, look, John Locke is just saying this is all Christianity is. John Locke was quoting Paul, basically. And it shows how little Daniel actually understood the Bible, the history of liberalism, where it comes from, the history of ethics. And all his Muslim followers are basically just brainwashed by him to think that if anything goes against Islam, well, that's because you've been brainwashed by liberalism. And a lot of them, what they don't know is Christianity gave rise to liberal values. This is what Charles Taylor, Tom Holland, Robert Woodbury, Rodney Stark are all telling us. And then Christianity gave rise to all these liberal values. So he thinks that liberal values will somehow ruin Christianity. No, there are values, Daniel. You need to actually do some real research for a change.
And I saw Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin, post a tweet, because he has considered himself a classical liberal as opposed to a modern liberal or progressive. So classical liberalism is like the liberalism of people like Locke. But he pointed out that as far as the theories go, people like Locke assumed, they took for granted that they were talking about a Christian population that was going to give people, that was going to give people certain values, and that based on the fact that you have that sort of population, you can have these kinds of freedoms. So we'll talk about these sorts of freedoms, liberties, and so on that you can have because you have this kind of population. If you look at the founding fathers, they all said something very similar in the sense, like John Adams said, our Constitution was made for a moral and religious people. It will not work for anyone else. So they all have the idea that you have a certain kind. Keep in mind, it does not have to be Christianity. It was, as a matter of fact, a Christian population here. But the idea, and this goes all the way, Plato was always talking about the problems that are going to rise if you have a democracy. People are just going to keep voting based on their desires, and their desires are going to go off the hinges, and you're going to end up with a messed up situation. So the solution to that, as far as eventually the eventual, the classical liberalism, is you need some force that's somehow restraining people and encouraging virtue and things like that. And then, given that sort of population, you can have that. And so people like Daniel, he's looking at liberalism as like this, I don't know, atheistic thing that came along later, when the entire basis was, now that we have a population that will have a sort of moderating force on the population, these are the kinds of freedoms we can have. And you look at Daniel, and nope, that's all just like some weird atheistic thing that came along later.
Well, what he doesn't understand is he thinks that, like, he doesn't realize that modern liberal secularism took values they got from Christianity and then just tried to divorce it from the Christian beliefs. The original understanding of liberal values of like equality and freedom, as you were going on, were never supposed to be divorced from the institution of Christianity. That they were saying that, this idea that maybe we should have these other values within a Christian society. And secularism is this idea. Charles Taylor talks about it in this book, The Secular Age. We're going to take these ideas away from Christianity and try to build a secular world without the basis from which it came from. And I would argue that's a recipe for social disaster. It's actually going to lead away from the liberal values they're trying to preserve. And we see this in research, for example. The more people move away from Christianity, Christian beliefs, you get more into ideas of nationalism. You get more into ideas of political messianism. This is what Philip Gorski, Roger Brubaker, Kenneth Vaughan have talked about. So this idea that, liberalism is supposed to be part of a Christian society. It's never supposed to be divorced and taken away from that idea. So Daniel somehow thinks, and a lot of Muslims like him think, that liberalism has corrupted Christianity. No, Christianity gave rise to liberalism, and what the corruption is happening is people have taken liberalism away from its Christian roots, and then they try to build it without Christianity. That's the corruption that's happening. But Daniel has no clue on history, philosophy, ethics, all these issues. So he just gives this wild bastardization of the actual history that's unfolded. And he needs to read some of the books and papers I cited, but, I doubt he will.
No, of course he won't. And so basically, everyone has pointed again. It wouldn't, in theory, it wouldn't have to be Christianity. As a matter of fact, it was Christianity in the West. But you're going to have to get something that restrains people's desires. Otherwise, they'll go off the rails, and then it has to be imposed on you by force, by a tyrant or Islam or something else. So that's the point is, and Chesterton has talked about things like this, where he said that you had these values that were based on Christianity, but then you say, oh, we don't want the Christianity. So then you just start treating these specific values like tolerance as these idols that are just hanging out there in air. And they lose their connection, because you had all these values and they were connected into a coherent whole. But once you sort of separate them as these independent, again, you treat them like idols. Chesterton said that the world has become, it's a world of Christian values gone mad, right? And have to see. And that's what, it's funny because everyone said this is what's going to happen. Said, here are the freedoms and liberties we're going to give you. It depends on this kind of population. If you don't have that, it's going to fall apart. And interesting, looks like it's starting to fall apart exactly as they said it would. But then Muslims are pointing out, saying, it's Christianity's fault. Well, what's your solution? Just slaughter everyone? Because that would be the solution, right? Anyway, let's see some more of the Tater.
Yeah.
As a whole, we have no problems with Christians. None at
Did he just say no problems with Christians?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Wait, so fight those who do not believe? and
Christians are the best of all creatures. That's how it goes, right?
Christians are the worst of all creatures. Fight those who do not believe. When you're looking for the justification, it's in the next verse. Christians say that the Messiah is the Son of God. Interesting.
all. I don't want anyone to think I'm anti-Christian and like I dislike Christians. We don't have a problem with Christians. We believe in a lot of the same things. We believe in Jesus. We put more respect on the name of Jesus than most Christians do.
This is what I mean. It sounds like
God.
it sounds like he's just going with the Dawa script, right? Like the Dawa script. Like, guys, according to Christianity, Jesus is Lord. He's God incarnate. Hard to get more respectful of a person than. You guys know Anthony Rogers. He said it's like it would be like going to the CEO of a company. So you go to this, you go find the CEO or owner of a company. So you go into Tesla and Elon's there, and you start saying, no, he's the janitor.
Yeah.
But
I respect him more than you guys do.
I really like him as the janitor. I think he's a great janitor. See, I said he's great, so I'm respecting him more than the rest of you who call him, CEO or something like that. It's like, what do you mean?
It's condescending for Muslims like Tate to say we respect Jesus more than even you guys do because we're so much better at this. Like, it's so condescending and arrogant and disrespectful to Christians to say that to us, as if it's supposed to make us feel better, because that's what he's trying to do in this clip, is say, well, I don't have anything with Christians. I respect Jesus more than you stupid little simpleton Christians do. Like, what are you saying, dude?
Well, he's under the impression that no Christians, because and this is why I think Christians have somewhat created some of these problems, because he under the impression that no Christians respect Jesus. The world is so doomed. Every Christian is anti-Jesus. They've gone woke and mad and all this other stuff, right? And because of how social media works, like I can see how that could work, because this is how we tend to sound a lot of the time. You know what I mean? But this is, I think, social media. You exacerbate problems sometimes. And then so he's just running with that. And so I don't know who's more at fault on that one. I mean, is it the Christians who just act as everything's super doomed all the time, because that was what works on YouTube, or because, I mean, regardless, I just think he's wrong. If I go to my church and you think that Muslims have more respect for Jesus than the Christians in my church, I don't think that's true at all.
That's just the Dawa script, and that's what I mean. It's like he's being fed standard Dawa lines from these da'is, and
it's so condescending and disrespectful. It'd be like David. It's like, David, I got nothing against your wife. In fact, I respect her more than you do. I mean, that's rude and stupid. I mean, but he says that as if he's trying to say, like, oh, how much I like Christians. Let me just be condescending towards you guys. Like, is this what's going on in his head? Like, that's not.
No, we should say the same with Muhammad. Right?
I was thinking the same thing, John. I was thinking the exact same thing. But notice what they do. They say Jesus is a Muslim, and then we respect the Muslim version of Jesus, and so we respect him more than you do. So notice, we'll just say, okay, Muhammad was actually a Christian, so now we like him. He was actually a Christian. He believed in the Trinity. He believed that Jesus died on the cross for sins and rose from the dead. Later, Uthman came in. He corrupted the message. He burned all the authentic Qurans, which said that Jesus is Lord. He burned all of those. And so Muhammad was actually a Christian. Later, people corrupted his message. And so we respect Muhammad more than you Muslims because we believe in him now. And you'd be like, that is so insanely ridiculous. Great. Now you know how we feel when you say it about Jesus with absolutely no evidence.
or like this. So how they demote Jesus in order to say respect him more? We just demote Muhammad to he's just a guy, right?
Yeah, he's just a regular guy.
We respect him way more. We respect him way more.
Yeah, we respect him. I respect him more when I call him a false prophet. That's super respectful. All right, let's go.
I just don't like the idea of people saying they're a Christian and saying, but because I'm a Christian, I can do whatever I want and throw all the rules away and none of it matters. Because once
how many Christians do you know?
That's who says that
are like that. Yeah.
Morality doesn't matter anymore. Nobody says that. Yeah.
This is what he's talking about. What he's talking about is actually heresy. It's called antinomianism. The idea you don't have to you're not held to a law. And no, Christians don't believe that. I mean, Paul talks about, we still have to keep the law of God, love thy neighbor as thyself. James talks about the royal law. I mean, there is still law for Christians. No one says this. I mean, has the guy even read the New Testament?
Yeah, I think he's conflating. I mean, and this is where Protestants and Catholics tend to kind of disagree. But you don't earn your salvation anymore, right? So it's like there's still people tend to think that the only reason to hold morality is out of fear. This is Tate's argument, right? The only reason to hold to moral things is out of fear, and that's not right because and I argued this in my video responding to this too. But the issue with that is like it's like I mean, even practically speaking, right? Like IP, why don't you go cheat on your wife? Is it just because you're scared to cheat on your wife, right? You're scared, or is it because you love her and respect her, and therefore, and you are secure in that relationship? And this is why Tate's whole entire thing is backwards to me. If you're secure in a relationship, a lot of the times that causes you to act more moral, right? Because it's like now that I know I'm safe, the day that I was the most secure in my relationship is the day that I got married, and I did not say, "Oh, okay, now that I'm married and it's for life, I can't wait to go cheat on her since she's trapped." Ha ha ha. You know, that just shows that you have immoral foundations underneath your so-called morality because you're not doing it for the right reasons. And because you care about these people, you're doing it out of fear. You know what I mean? Out of fear that you're going to get in trouble. And so that's not a moral thing. It can be a wise thing, but it's not a moral thing. You can't take a moral claim on that because you're not doing it for the moral right reasons.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right on that. Nothing else to say.
That level of tolerance, you no longer have a religion. Islam seems to be the last religion left with parameters. If you don't have parameters, you don't have a religion at all. So the closer.
That's it. Yeah.
His face.
No Christians have any rules. They just all Christians spend all day at the club, and Muslims spend all day worshiping Muhammad. And I mean, my goodness, I remember the polls came out several years ago where like Pakistan led the planet in searches for like animal porn, sex with animals, all this stuff. So I mean, you know, to their credit, they're kind of keeping it because it's talking about online searches and stuff like that. But
so yeah, well, because he mentions that in this interview too, where he says, "Well, yeah, there's a lot of gay people, or there could be gay Muslims." I can't remember. Maybe he didn't say a lot, but I'm trying not to misquote him. But he says something along the lines of, "There's a lot of gay Muslims and stuff, but they don't make it public." So that he's like, that's the real problem that Muslims have is when they're making it public and doing this and that. But again, this is not morality. Like you can call it something else, but you can't call it morality if that's the aspect. Because if you're saying that they're doing immoral things in private, that's not saying that all you're doing is telling them to either stifle it or lie about it. Is that moral? Right? It's like all of these issues with it that just don't make sense to me.
And by the way, notice how insane this is. Andrew Tate comes out, made his fortune by being a webcam pimp, sex, human trafficking, all that stuff. And who defends him to the death and saying, all your sins are forgiven because you recited the Shahada? So what is that? Free pass on everything he's done. This is the guy lecturing us on thinking that you can get away with anything and as long as you adhere to Christianity. He's pointing at, Christians, you believe you can get away with anything. Whereas me, I'm the super moral guy, and that's why I choose Islam. It's like, wait, the people who are defending you and saying you get a free pass for all those things, and the people who will not hold you to account for anything you're doing right now are who?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I found myself to God, the closer I found myself to Islam. That's just how it ended.
And Andrew, speaking of fear,
the more people I trafficked, the more I realized I want a prophet who promotes sex trafficking.
one could argue that Islam these days, certainly in the last 20 years with the war on terror, they've also been the most vilified.
Absolutely.
Right? So, you know, everything that we've seen happen with extremism and everything that's going on all over the world, how are you grappling with that? You've been a Christian for years.
Notice the kid gloves, by the way. Oh, poor Muslims. Yeah, because of all the, terrorist attacks and now they're being vilified. He just spent, all he's doing is attacking Christians right now. But Muslims are being vilified.
Now, Islam, everything.
And you know what? That's such an interesting question, because when I was younger, especially when I was an atheist, I would sit and think, people are really doing terror attacks and doing all this crazy stuff because they're upset over a cartoon. That's so stupid. And nobody should kill him. Nobody should kill him.
Charlie Hebdo.
Nobody should kill over this stuff? He just said that. You heard it, right?
He's saying that he thought this when he was a Christian. Yeah.
No, he's saying this now. He's saying, just to clarify,
Yeah.
No
He's
should be
saying
over.
now nobody's sure.
His position
Yeah.
is, yes, I realized I could respect them for standing up what they believe. But to be clear, you shouldn't be killing people over this stuff. But that's the
Yeah.
solution. That's how Islam does what you're saying it should be doing.
Yeah.
All right, let's get them in context here.
You know, they're upset over a cartoon. That's so stupid. And nobody should kill anybody. Nobody should kill anybody.
Charlie Hebdo, everything.
Yeah, nobody should kill anybody.
But-
Nobody should kill anybody. I'll make that very clear. But also,
Yeah, that's what I said. I want to make that very clear. No one should kill anyone. But that's the solution in Islam. So what in the world? That's the solution for anything you're worried about with LGBTQ and so on. That's the Islamic solution. So notice, everyone else is trying to deal with issues that arise because in the world, you're just dealing with new issues that arise all the time. Everyone's trying to deal with them without going on a killing spree. And he says, yes, what we need to avoid is the killing spree, but we need to convert to Islam, which is the only option that will handle everything by going on a killing spree. Make up your mind. If you say don't do it by killing, okay, great. Then Islam is off the table as far as solutions.
Yeah.
part of me is now saying, why would you want to insult the prophet for billions of people? Why would you want to do that? I don't even want to make the argument against free speech. I'm not even saying you couldn't be allowed to. This is a sensitive subject. I'm just saying, what kind of person wakes up and thinks?
He just said, I'm not saying you shouldn't be allowed to or couldn't be allowed to commit blasphemy.
Want to do that. I don't know. I just don't think that's a healthy mindset. Like when I see these Satanists, and they're, especially in America, and they're doing, let's keep it on Christianity, these Satanists, and they're dressing up Jesus as gay and all this stuff, like, that's not done in any kind of good faith. There's no good reason to do that. That's done with genuinely malicious intention. And what kind of people want to do that? And then the answer by extension is, I thought America was a Christian country. So how can you have a Christian country where the prophets of the religion are mocked to the highest possible levels within the confines of the country and it's promoted? Is that a Christian country? Doesn't seem like a Christian country to me. I don't think the same thing would happen with Islam in Saudi Arabia. I can't imagine that happening. So how can you say we're a Christian country?
What's up?
I was going to say, you probably want to pause so we can address that first issue because he seems to be moving into the next one. So when he says, like, what kind of person wakes up wanting to draw pictures of Muhammad just to be disrespectful? Is that what's going on? Is that what they do? Everybody just wakes up and the idea pops in their head and they say, hey, I'm going to draw pictures of Muhammad. Of course, that's not what they do. There's the reason why they're doing it are the reasons which Tate would respect, because in their mind, they're doing what Tate thinks he's doing when he's standing up against the LGBT stuff. Because he always talks about the people who are trying to, ironically, the people who are controlling, there's quotes of him saying this in one of the videos I did on him. He says, the people who are trying to control are always the bad guys. And so he says, we have to resist, we have to stand up, we have to be masculine, we have to be macho and stand up against those people. So what do we have? The reason why people are drawing pictures of Muhammad is because we're saying, no, you're not going to bully us into not being able to disrespect you and your religion when you flat out disrespect us and our beliefs and our religions. That's why people wake up and say, yeah, you're not going to get away with it. You're not going to have special requirements for you. So that's why we're going to draw pictures of Muhammad. That's their mindset. Now, I'm not saying that I think people should do that. I mean, depending on the situation, but I'm not advocating for that. But my point here is just simply like,
weren't you an Islamicized me? Weren't you an Islamicized me?
yeah, exactly.
Hey, wait, right? Haven't you been in Muhammad's boom boom room? Haven't you been?
I have, and there's a reason for it, right?
Yeah.
What is the reason? Why too? And this is what I'm saying. So like, for him to think that like there couldn't be any other reason besides maliciousness is just not true. And it's kind of funny because like, I actually I don't want to veer off topic, but anyways, that's what I would say about that. And Wood, I mean, you've done worse than draw pictures of Muhammad.
Yeah,
you've desecrated the Quran, right? Why have you done that?
And notice, in all of those situations, I was saying, because of this awful, completely unacceptable, evil, absolutely evil behavior, here's what I'm going to do to make you stop that evil. And when I do that, they lose their minds and they cry like babies. Over and over. So I'll give you an example. They all circulated the clip of me taking a bite out of the Quran. They always leave out what led to it, except for the people who are rebuking Muhammad Hijab. But back then, Muhammad Hijab announced that he's launching a campaign. He's telling his hundreds of thousands of followers, we're going to start a new campaign where we actually go after people's wives. Instead of going after the critic of Islam directly, instead go after their wives and harass them with threats of rape and torture. So he's encouraging his fans to go around harassing not the people who are criticizing Islam, go after wives with threats of rape and torture. And I said, well, if you're going to do that, I'm going to make you stop because I'm going to take a bite out of your Quran. I can do this all day. And then he actually stopped. He stopped doing it. All his followers stopped. And then they all run, oh my goodness, he took a bite out of our book. Well, one, it was because of what you did. Two, I'm trying to stop evil, right? Isn't that what, I mean, Tate is saying we should be taking a stand on these issues. What's insane is they all seem to think that, if Christians would just man up and take a stand, they're going to stand against the exact same things that we're standing against. So they're going to, go around killing LGBT. They're going to go around doing all that and put an end to it. That's why that's why we're making fun of Christians for being too soft. You don't realize, guys, do you know how far up on the list of things we would want to respond to? IP already pointed out earlier, child marriage, the wife beating, the killing of apostates. These would be pretty high on the list of things we want to respond to. So if you're looking for that's what I don't get it. It's like they're saying we want a muscular Christianity to respond to evil. Your prophet is the source of a lot of the evil we would respond to. So be careful of what you wish for, because you get Christians standing up saying we're not putting up with this anymore. Guess what? When one person does that, you all start crying like baby. We can't believe he did this. So anyway, guys, you might want to rethink your position, and you should be happy that Christians don't immediately rush to violence. Go ahead, IP.
Yeah, and just one quick sentence I was going to say. Remember when he made
stand up to the idea that
Oh, go ahead, IP.
No, John has got a really bad lag right now, so he's like sort of just like hanging out. But what I was going to say is, like, we stand up against the evil on both sides. For example, like, we'll go after the Muslims promoting child marriage, polygamy, slavery, sex slavery, all this stuff. But we'll also go against the woke side that wants to gender transition children, which we vehemently are against and think should be abolished. So, there are right now Christian campaigns to end gender transitioning for children in the U.S. because this is evil. There's all sorts of stuff going on to try to prevent as much as this is possible. So we are standing up against evil on both sides. Muslims are just mad. We are now also going against the evil crap they promote, like child marriage. We are against sexualizing children on both sides of this aisle. When Muslims do it in child marriage and when the woke crowd does it in gender transitioning children. So we're against it all across the board.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right, let's check a little more here.
But everyone's mocking our God on the streets. Ha, ha, ha. It's on Netflix. Ha, ha, ha. That's not a Christian country to me. So if you're not a Christian...
Notice... This is so dumb. I guess I should let him finish. He's talking about that clip where a Satanist at a Satanist conference ripped up a Quran. And so since a Satanist ripped up a Quran at a Satanist conference, it's not a Christian country.
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting. Let me go ahead and play a clip real quick. I want to.
Hey, hold on, David, real quick. I'm going to come back out and come back in because people are saying I'm the one lagging. So
you're not lagging anymore. You're perfect right now. I'm looking right at your face. You're fine. Well, I mean, internet fluctuates. So
yeah.
All right. So let's check out how things are going in Pakistan right now. Why didn't we not die before seeing this? They're wiping their bums with pages of the Quran. They write the names of the companions of the Prophet and defecate on them. I've never seen you cry like this. Can't imagine they would sink this low.
I love that this is what they cry about and not child marriage, slavery.
People burn this country down.
साइबर क्राइम की रिपोर्ट के मुताबिक जो मुझे आज दिखाई गई है उसके मुताबिक इनकी तादाद पाकिस्तान में
400,000 people in Muslim Pakistan. 400,000 people in Muslim Pakistan doing this stuff. Oh, I thought Pakistan was a Muslim country. Let's keep watching.
4 लाख है 120 लोग गिरफ्तार हो चुके 11 लोगों को सजाए मौत हो चुकी है हम करें तो करें क्या किस दरवाजे पर दस्तक दे हम ये सवाल करना चाहते क्या हम मुल्क में जलाओ
Oh,
गहरा
look at the solution. I want to ask a question. Should we burn the cities down as protest? So should we?
Where would they get that idea from, right? Like, I mean, this is why I swear to you, Islam has a unique problem here that other religions just don't have. Because why would that jump in a Christian's mind? And if people decide to like desecrate the Bible, we're like, hey, should we burn the city down? Should we start killing everybody? Like, that's not a... And
Yeah.
that's what Tate sees that as a good thing, like, in his mind, which is bizarre, because he doesn't want to live in a society like that either. You know, nobody, you shouldn't want to, unless you're the ones in power, right?
Yeah, and if you look at you can see the problem with what's going on in this clip. He mentions that it all started with 4 people, and they like sentenced those guys to death or arrested those guys or something like that, and now it's up to 400,000.
Yeah.
And he's saying, should we burn cities down as protest? Now, we think that's idiotic, but suppose you actually did it. We'll burn a city down in protest. You think that's going to stop the blasphemy against Muhammad? Or it's going to skyrocket when people see you burning cities to the ground to defend Muhammad, right?
How did that work with Black Lives Matter, right? When people started burning stuff down, the right's response to it was way worse because of that, right? Like people were actually way more mad. So that doesn't help. That only makes the problem worse.
And these guys still haven't caught on. They're the ones causing the problem. Why are hundreds of thousands of people writing Muhammad's name on their penises and their rear ends and everything else? Why are they doing that? It's because guys like you have enraged the population, and they're sick of you, and they're sick of your prophet, and so they're responding. And you had the method that tended to work pretty well for you in the past. Yes, if some guy in some village speaks against Muhammad and you go kill him, yes, that sends a message to the surrounding villagers and so on, and they learn not to do that. You're in a different time now. You're in the age of the internet. Things have changed. Now, if you do it, the entire world sees it and they start mocking your prophet even more. So what are you going to do? Well, you might want to behave in a way.
Well, I mean,
might want to behave in a way that makes people not want to mock your prophet. But that's not what you do. You say, we're going to burn cities to the ground.
I'm just thinking, like, wait, how do they know people are wiping their butts?
This is just the wisdom of Christianity, because hate just inspires more hate.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
hate just inspires more hate. I mean, Christianity, the basis is pray for your enemies, love everyone, and love creates more love and creates a better world. So when people attack Jesus, our response to Jesus gives us is to pray for them and love them. Don't encourage what they're doing, but just going after and causing violence and hate is not good. It's just going to make them want to do it more. Do Muslims not understand the more they hate and cause violence, it's just going to make people want to insult Islam more?
Yeah, again, this would, even though it's evil, this would be an effective method in certain eras of history. This is not that one anymore. Now it's anything you do like this is going to blow up on the internet, and people are gonna come after your prophet even more. What are you doing about it? Notice Andrew Tate, a Satanist in the United States of America, burned his own copy of the Bible in a conference for Satanists. Therefore, it's not a Christian. Then it's not a Muslim country. Let's go ahead and finish this. Okay. You have atheist professors lecturing your students. You call this a Muslim country? The fire of apostasy has reached every household. Really, in a Muslim country? I mean, this is like Sharia central. Apart from Afghanistan, you can't find a more Sharia compliant country than Pakistan. And this is how things are going in Pakistan. Scholar of Islam was caught blaspheming.
जो रिपोर्ट दिखाई है उस रिपोर्ट को देखकर मेरे रोंगटे खड़े हो गए। ये सब इस मुल्क में हो रहा है। मैं सिर्फ इशारतन ये अर्ज कर रहा हूँ फैसल कुरैशी साहब
on their private parts. They're writing the Shahada on their private parts. Tell us what you really think, Sheikh.
Oh my goodness!
I think
it's almost over.
I think one of the other.
Oh my goodness!
This is
Dude,
This needs to be a Snickers commercial. He needs a hand. You're not you when you're hungry. Have a Snickers.
that would be funny. So, we should do some green screening, and someone steps in. Hey, Shake, I think you're a little hungry. You're not yourself, and play the clip. Anyway, this continues.
Well, here's the thing. The reason I was laughing too is because when Andrew Tate's like, "Oh, you got in Christianity, Christian country, you have some gay pastors." I'm like, dude, sounds like you guys got way worse problems in Muslim countries than we have in the Christian countries. Because I'm like, you can work. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if there's any statistics on this, but I don't think Christianity is being overtaken by LGBT pastors. But that looks like a worse problem to me. If he's saying it's that dramatic, sounds worse. So it's just funny because Tate's argument would work way worse, it sounds like, against the Muslim countries than it would even in the Christian countries. Doesn't sound like they're doing really good to best at preserving. Go ahead.
Yeah. I got an interesting statistic for you guys. This was actually a source I got from Daniel Hakikachu again. Sorry, I think I'm lagging a little bit, so I apologize.
That's fine. It happens.
But interesting source is this book called Are Muslims Distinctive? The book is by M. Stephen Fish, and he has a chapter, I think it's chapter 7 or 8, on gender inequality. He notes that in Muslim countries, they're primarily the only countries in the world where the life expectancy for the woman is much, much worse than the man. Whereas in other countries, like Western countries, it's reversed. So women in Muslim countries, predominantly Muslim countries, have lower literacy rates, lower education rates, less equality rights, and lower life expectancy. So it's really bad for women in Muslim countries compared to what happens if they live outside of them. So I just found that very funny when I was going through this book, and I was like, why would a Muslim ever cite this? Like, this doesn't help them at all.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back.
What's been your evolution of your faith, and where are you at today?
Yeah, I think it's third law.
Let me fast forward here, get where we're going. I think we started right around 7. All right, let's see.
Christian country to me. So if you're not a Christian country, then where's the religion? Where the religion's supposed to enforce certain boundaries. You're supposed to at least show it respect, And it's also kind of interesting because in Christian countries, there's more respect for Islam than there is for Christianity. In a Christian country, name one. They still don't do it with the Islamic Prophet.
Why do you think that is?
It's too much smoke.
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
It's just not worth the heat. Because people believe. And I'm not advocating for violence on any level. I'm saying that even these...
If a Satanist does something, you have to deal with that. How would you deal with that? Violence. But I'm not advocating violence.
Too much smoke. Who are trying to destroy people's belief in God, like we've discussed earlier, because they don't want you to have any baseline morality. If you believe in God, there are commandments, yes and no. That baseline morality prevents you being an absolute slave, so they're trying to destroy it. But even those degenerates who are trying to mock and disgrace God, understand there's a point where it just backfires and, ooh, this is smoke. And they don't want the smoke. And shouldn't God be feared? I'm scared of God. It's the only thing I fear.
He always seems to me like he's 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Like he's looking at a world 20 years ago. Who's scared of making fun of Islam right now? Yeah. I mean, go on Twitter. It's everywhere. My goodness. And lots of people's reasons for not, I mean, you do have people in newspapers and so on who didn't want to republish cartoons and so on because because there were threats of violence and so on. Lots of people, their concern was that they were taught that Muslims are the victims, right? And that the West is the one that's victimizing them and so on. So they don't want to make fun of Muhammad. And now, because of the Dawah guys, they're finding out what Islam teaches, and people are mocking it more and more. I mean, my goodness, go on. Notice this is the same guy who said, who when someone ripped up the matter of fact, it was that specific instance that Satanist ripped up a Bible, and he tweets, go ahead and try that with the Quran, see what happens. And then everyone starts posting videos of them doing it with the Quran. YouTube, Twitter, everywhere. And he takes down the tweet. What's that mean? It means by the time he recorded this, he knew that was nonsense. He knew it was nonsense that people are terrified of offending Islam. So yeah, and on top of it too, he talks about they fear God. But I don't think people are afraid of God when they decide to mock Muhammad. They're not they don't believe in Allah. You know what I mean? What they're afraid of is being murdered, if anything. If they're afraid of something getting murdered because people can't take criticism, right, of their religions. Yeah. So that's not even more so, the bigger issue is they don't want to be called an Islamophobe, right? They're scared of being called Islamophobe. Right, exactly.
Yeah. They're afraid of other people, not Allah.
Yeah, let's see.
Fear God. They can put me in jail. I know I'm telling the truth. God's on my side. I fear God. So God should be feared. So once again, does anybody fear the Christian God? I haven't seen anybody scared of him in a long time. And it's kind of crazy because it's very interesting. The mass migration and all these things are leftist policies, but then also Islam is the most right-wing religion on earth. It's kind of very interesting. I grew up in England, and I grew up...
But by the way, notice this. So he's pointing out that, I mean, yes, you would think Islam is on the political spectrum. Islam would be very right wing. Right. But notice, I mean, up until
in the last 1 year, 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when we think of Muslims in politics, who are we thinking of? Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Keith Ellison. They're the most extreme far left extremist progressive types on the political spectrum. And you say, that's just them. Who voted for them? Who put them in power? Who continues putting them in power? They come from areas with large Muslim populations that keep voting for them, and all of a sudden, very, very recently, you get Muslims protesting LGBTQ stuff, and you see they're the only ones who are going to stand. They're only ones on the planet who are going to stand against it. My goodness.
Yeah. See, I think this is what it's also, like. People have. I was gonna say. I think this is where it's like, because I'm not that old, and I remember 5 years ago when all of the Muslims were arguing how left they all were. You know what I mean? How they are for tolerance and women's rights and all this other stuff, right? Equality and all this stuff, and bragging about like left talking points, you know. And now they've all just shifted over here recently, like in the last like 2 years. I swear, you know what I mean? And so I think it's kind of funny too. But again, all he's referring to there is like when he says the most right wing, what is he talking about? Is he just talking about LGBT stuff? Because that's all it sounds like he's talking about. And then that's why I'm like, is this the only issue that he's saying that they're the most right wing on? I don't know what else he's talking about, but I could be wrong. But
and again, even this is very recent. Go ahead, Appy.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, to build on what John was saying, you could say that Islam is most right wing on LGBTQ stuff, but not on sexualizing children, or you could say there's correlations on the left in Islam with like this idea that no, children can consent. We can marry them off at like 13, 12, and 9. And you can see people on the extreme left doing that. You can see also in Islam you have polygamy, and in extreme woke you have polyamorous relationships. But he talked in the video about how no one fears the Christian God. I'm like, well, the first thing that thought came to my mind was that, no, the Romans weren't scared of Jesus when they were crucifying him. That was the point. God was not showing his power to make them afraid because he was demonstrating his love. And that's what the church is teaching. God is pushing judgment off and is going to continue to, so he can keep saving as many people as he possibly can. It's not about fear and power. It's about humility and love. So he doesn't understand the basics of Christianity.
Well, it's relationship rather than rules, right? Ultimately, it's like God is God. The whole Bible is about God's plan to redeem humanity in the sense to rightly relate them with God. And so entering into right relationship is far more important because the motivation for doing the right thing is completely different than it is in every other religion, including Islam. Because now you're motivated by love the same way you do with your wife, like the example I gave earlier. The reason why you're good to your wife is out of love, not out of fear that she could hurt you, or maybe some guys are motivated too out of your wife leaving you or something like that. It could be fear in that sense. But ultimately, I think in the Christianity, it's like the more secure we are, the more that we choose to do right for God out of thankfulness, out of love, out of respect, and all of those things. So.
Yeah, and notice, Islam is the most feared and respected, and they won't try that. And it's like he's saying don't kill, but the entire reason anyone would at all be concerned, because keep in mind, notice Muslim countries, they're not obeying out of fear of Allah. They're obeying because they don't want to get their heads chopped off. That's why. That's the only reason. And over here, you either have people are worried about being killed, or more likely they're worried about being called Islamophobes and so on. Yeah. So it's either fear of violence or flat out manipulation. Those are not good reasons to respect anything, right? Those just aren't good reasons to respect it. So anyways, his reasons are garbage. And again, if he wants to say this, what do you do? Look at Pakistan. They're literally crying on stage, on television, primetime TV, moaning and wailing about the hundreds of thousands of people who are posting stuff all over the internet, insulting their God. So doesn't seem to be working out very well. And what are you going to do? You're going to burn those cities to the ground. Good luck with that stuff. We should probably wrap up here in a second.
Mainly Muslims, it's a huge Islamic community. And there was a bunch of English people who were complaining about there's too much immigration, we're losing our culture. And I understood their point absolutely. But these are the same people complaining about all the left-wing LGBT in schools and all these issues. And I was like, the only allies you have against this are the Muslims. They're the only allies you have in any of this.
Yeah, they want to marry your kids.
Christians don't protest against any of this stuff.
Look at that. Christians don't protest against it. Guys, have you seen?
Yeah.
Isn't this weird? It's like it's. I don't know what he's paying attention to. When I think of people who are active in dealing with LGBTQ stuff, it's like I'm thinking like Matt Walsh, everyone at the Daily Wire. So those kinds of people. If you're talking about politics, I'm thinking like who? Ron DeSantis, Ted Cruz, political conservatives are the ones who have a problem with various issues and who are responding to it. And it's like, where are you getting the idea? It's only Muslims. Only Muslims. Muslims are the only ones who are going to have a problem with any of this. And everyone else just rolls over and they go to their LGBTQ pastor and blah, 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 blah. It's like, do you know how massively you're misrepresenting this? Guys, here's the actual situation. In every group has kind of a spectrum of people. That's why you'll have LGBTQ mosques and so on. Every group within Christianity, you'll have all kinds of people. You'll have people who are extremely concerned about this. You'll have people who don't care too much about it. You'll have the same thing in the Jewish community, Hindu community. Guess what? Atheist community. You do have people in the atheist community who are concerned. You have people in the LGBTQ community who are saying, "Hey, let's keep this stuff away from kids and so on." Yeah. So you have this in every group. Somehow, it's the same exact thing when they talk about the Quran. They can't just say the Quran's been well preserved. They have to like massively misrepresent everything and distort it and exaggerate. It's the only perfectly preserved book down to the letter. They have to make something up. They can't just say, hey, Muhammad's our prophet. He's the greatest man who ever lived. They have to make something up. And hey, if you've got a problem, any problem that you see in society, Islam is the only thing that can stand up against it. Everyone else will just bow down before it. Dude, you sound like an idiot. Do we need to keep watching this or should we go and wrap up? What do you guys think?
I think we've covered most of it.
Yeah, I think too. Yeah. I mean, because all the stuff he says is kind of like that. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's like he doesn't do any type of like research or thinking and I mean, he doesn't do this for, most of his time for work like how we do, but it just looks really irresponsible because all the stuff he says, I'm always thinking like, where are you getting that from? You're just saying stuff that you've heard from just the Dawa guys. That's the only place where I recognize what he's saying. And yeah, so it just sounds like these big generalizations, equivocations, not a failure to make distinctions, failure, so all kinds of issues like that. But.
Oh, actually, I think he's about to say it. I think he's about to say he doesn't have a problem with gay people and so on. Yeah, I think he's about to say that.
There's very few Christians who will get up off their ass and complain. In fact, I saw on Twitter yesterday, one of the churches was lit up in rainbow. I have nothing against gay people. I don't care.
Oh, really?
And that's actually another point.
You don't want to kill them like in Islam?
This thing. I think most people don't care, and I think that bothers them.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever had an argument with a girl and she's like stropping around the house, she's huffing and puffing, and you just don't give a shit? So she has to keep upping the ante till you eventually go, what's the problem? Because she tried the low-level stuff and you didn't care.
So Tate here is arguing that LGBTQ people are just in it for attention. That may be true in certain cases, in other cases not. But his theory that he lays down here is that people were gay for attention, and then when they stopped getting attention for that, they wanted to do they had to keep going further just for attention. So let's see where he goes.
I kind of feel like this has a remnants of that. I'm gay, cool. I want to get married. Fine. I want to wave my dick in your kid's face. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I feel like they tried to annoy us, and we're like, we don't give a shit. Do whatever you want. Be a person.
Is that Islam? We'll do whatever
and now
you want.
Like, okay, well, we have to get to a limit where they have to react. Yeah. We want attention now. We want them to care about
What's
this.
the right move on that?
Well, that's the point. It's difficult.
Oh, did you catch that? Oh, let's see if he offers anything else, because that's actually huge.
There comes a point where you simply have to address it, and now you have to oppose it. And this is sorry to interrupt you, but this is why they're so careful and so clever with what they do. They package it all together. LGBTQ. I would argue.
This is that's actually what I want to cover. Look at what he said. He said, he says he has no problem with gay people. He'd have a gay friend, no problem with that. So doesn't believe they should be killed or anything. But he draws the line when you want to put your privates in his kid's face. Guys, I'm not familiar with your specific views on this.
Yeah.
That sounds
Right, yeah.
like exactly my position, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, agreed.
like
Yeah.
if you're gay
The
guys,
kids is the big thing.
yeah, you're gay guy. If you got two gay guys and they're doing something, I'm not your boss. I'm not your boss. I'm not there to control you. I'm not going to go kill you. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. I generally don't care. If you want to if you're a man and you want to dress up like a woman or you want to transition, I'm not your boss.
Or wear your wife's nightie.
Yeah, like Muhammad.
Wear your wife's nightie.
Yeah, like Muhammad. But if you're saying, oh, now I want to go and do stuff, in front of your kid or something like that, that's where I draw the line. And Tate's acting like he's got some brilliant insight here. That's a pretty that's probably the dominant position, right? Like, if you're gay, well, okay, this is the United States of America. No one's stopping you from being gay here and so on. Oh, now we've got this new thing where all of a sudden people are doing drag queen story hour and stuff like this. And people are shocked, but you got to figure out, what to do about this because you don't want to just go out on a killing spree. You want to do what? You want to deal with it by protest or by, through the legal system or something like that. You don't want to run out and go on a protest. But guess what? Notice what is he saying here? He's saying, hey, don't go kill all these people, but we've got this new situation. We have to figure out how to deal with that. That's pretty much. I mean, again, there are LGBTQ people who agree completely with what he just said right there. Who agree completely.
There's a whole YouTube channel on it. It's called Gays Against Groomers. And there's a whole YouTube channel, and all of them are saying that.
And they're saying something. What he just said about putting all the letters together so that you can't respond to Drag Queen Story Hour without attacking like the entire community. You've got the LGBs without the T's. You've got that slogan. You've got the Gays Against Groomers. So anyway, the point is you have a spectrum in every group. You have a spectrum of different people in Christianity, in Islam, among atheists, among Buddhists, Jews, even in the LGBTQ community. You have people who are saying, okay, so here are the rules for adults. Here's something else for kids. And somehow in his mind, he's got some great insight right here. And he's giving the knowledge. And Islam is the only thing that can do this. Whereas, notice, Islam, the solution in Islam would just be kill all of them. And of course, people are going to keep doing it on the internet, and so you're never actually going to stop them. And how is this helpful at all? Is this helping any? Is this changing anything? This is weird. That's weird stuff.
And we should be clear too. The purpose of this is not to say that we're bashing Tate as a new Muslim. And because he doesn't know what he's talking about. Obviously, we know more about what we're talking about than he does because we've been doing this as full time for a long time. But the issue is that these are the reasons that he's giving for why Islam is better or true-ish in whatever kind of way he means true. But that's the problem. The problem is less about Tate. It's not really about Tate. It's the things that he's saying and the problems with it that we're addressing, not Tate specifically.
And notice what he said at the end there. The other guy said, okay, so what's the solution? Tate goes, well, that's the problem. It's hard. Right.
Exactly.
That's it. And it's hard. It's hard for Christians specifically because we don't believe in just going around slaughtering everyone who disagrees with us. Right. So you have for Christians, we're supposed to believe that everyone, all human beings are all created in the image of God. We're commanded honor all people. That's 1 Peter 2:17. There's not honor just your fellow Christians. Honor all people. And you're commanded to love your enemies. And for some reason, any Muslim who hears that, they all go, oh, so you're saying if someone's just coming in and raping and killing your wife, you'll just sit there because you love him.
Them.
Yeah, so notice, massively stupid and insane view of love. I mean, following that, like, I don't know how they raise kids. Like I said, do you love your kids? Oh, of course I love my kids. Right. Oh, so if your kid was burning the house to the ground, you just let him because you love him? Oh, you it doesn't mean anyone can do anything they want. But notice, it's not, we do not believe we have the authority to go around slaughtering everyone who disagrees with us. And so we generally try to respect people's rights as much as possible. but we also believe that governments do have authority to enforce laws and so on. And so you've got this new thing that comes along, and it's drag queen story hour and stuff like this. How do we respond? Well, we don't want to run out. We don't want to run out and start slaughtering people. We want to lay down rules, and you got to figure out where the lines are at. Guess what? That's difficult. That's going to take some time to figure out because this is a new thing. But then you got people like Tate who come in there and say, even though I don't believe in killing, and I have no problem with gay people, and I only have a problem with shaking things in my kid's face, we all need to convert to Islam because it's the only thing that can deal with this. By what? Slaughtering everyone. That's what you said you shouldn't do. So notice what he's saying is it's a difficult situation, and you got to figure out where the lines are. That's what everyone says. That's what that's the standard position as far as I can tell. Anyway, this is extremely sloppy. Somehow Muslims look at all of that. Yay, our hero, he's slam dunk case. All right, fine. Yeah. Let's get to our final thoughts on all of this. IP, you're lagging seriously. Let's see, but I've been hearing you clearly most of the time. So
yeah, I'm lagging like really bad. So
that's fine. I hear you. I hear you fine.
Tate does not understand Christian history. Yeah, it's clear he doesn't understand Christian history, Christian ethics. As I've been saying before, the Dawaganists, they constantly think Christianity is supposed to be like Diet Islam. And they don't realize that the ethics of Islam and Christianity are opposed in so many ways. And what Muslims do is they just go, well, that's because you've been corrupted by liberalism. No, we created liberalism. Get with the program. You need to actually do some research here. We created it. The problem is when it was taken away from Christianity and secularized. That's what we're against. But we're not going to oppose the basis of liberal values. We're going to oppose how it's been misused. So this is just a massive problem in the Dawagandist community. They don't understand the basics of Christian history, let alone Christian ethics.
Yeah, and this is an ongoing problem because you look at Andrew Tate, and he doesn't know much of what he's talking about when he's talking about religion or anything else. But you got his fans, so they love what he says, and it's wild. There are all sorts of things he could talk about where you could actually listen to him, and he knows. Like if he were to talk about kickboxing, okay, he was a champion kickboxer. Talk about kickboxing, and I would take you seriously because if you're talking about physical fitness, the dude is massive and pretty shredded. So you could actually know what you're talking about. If you're talking about discipline, well, generally, if you become a champion fighter and so on, you have good discipline. That's why he can talk about things like, hey, quit playing video games all the time and work out and so on. There are all these areas you could talk about, but people always make the same mistake. This goes back. I mean, this is in Plato's Apology, where Socrates was going around trying to find out who was wise, and over again he kept saying people had no clue what they were talking about. But they thought that because they're a great poet, therefore they know what they're talking about, or because they were craftsmen, they knew what they're talking about, or because they were politicians, therefore they knew what they were talking about. And he said, and they didn't. But their fans couldn't tell the difference either. The fans said, oh, he's such a great poet, therefore he knows what he's talking about. And same problem still today. All right, John, final thoughts here.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess when I think about all of it, it kind of comes down to the gospel in so many different ways. But I mean, even when you see all these, like Tate's complaint was like, oh, Christians don't take sin seriously. And you see Muslims saying this all the time, right? Oh, they because you can just do whatever. I think in Islam, I feel like they don't take sin seriously enough because if Allah can just blink at sin, right? It's like you're doing all these things and he arbitrarily just forgives. He's like, oh, okay, the good outweighs the bad. He's arbitrarily did. That's not perfect justice, because perfect justice entails that every single sin gets punished. You know what I mean? So that's perfect justice. But in Christianity, God is also perfectly merciful, and those come together at the cross. So he's not just dismissing sin in Christianity, where in Islam, he has to arbitrarily forgive sins in some sense. So justice truly isn't served. So in my mind, that kind of refutes his whole kind of point too from a Christian perspective, and that's just what makes sense to me. So I guess I just kind of I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, if you look at what's going on here, I really think it's the same strategy that Islam has had for a long time. That they see a problem in a society, and then they'll run in there and present Islam as the solution, even though Islam is most certainly not the solution. So you go back in the 60s, you had the race issues in the United States. Islam stepped in there and said, Islam is a religion of equality and so on. It's absolute nonsense. Muhammad bought, owned, sold, and traded black African slaves, and his followers started the sub-Saharan slave trade a long, way before the United States was even a thing. And somehow they go in there, we're the religion that solves this problem in society. And they're doing the same thing. Oh, here's this thing that you all are concerned about. Islam is the only thing that can deal with this. And 2 years from now, it'll be a different problem. And then they'll come in, Islam is the only thing that can deal with this. And is Islam just, what is Islam actually the solution to? I'm not aware of any problem that Islam is actually the solution to, because no matter what the problem is, you don't want the solution to be worse than the problem.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't want the solution to be worse than the problem. All right. Well, IP dropped out because of internet problems, but he was already done and gave his final thoughts. So anyway, I hope everyone, guys, regardless of your position, pay attention to what people are saying, and don't listen to the cadence of their voice or how much you like them. Try to figure out the argument they're making and try to figure out what the evidence is that shows that they're right. And if people would just get that tactic down, like, okay, the person is claiming this. What evidence did he provide for this? What is his reasoning? Does the conclusion follow from the premises? Pretty much everything someone like Tate says when he's talking about religion is going to fall apart, whether he's talking about Christianity or Islam, because he has no clue what he's talking about. Again, other issues, if he's talking about other issues, he may be the best in the world at talking about something I don't know. But on this issue, my goodness, he sucks. Stop believing people who don't know what they're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. And most importantly, learn to study this stuff for yourself. Especially you fans of the Dawa guys. I have to say, I've never seen such big liars on the planet in my entire life as the Dawa guys, who feel absolutely free to lie anytime. Part of that reason is because you guys, the fans don't hold them accountable. They lie and you just cheer them on. So learn to spot it, call them out on it, and you'll end up with more honest people talking to you. And then people like Tate, if you hold them to account when they say something false, hopefully they get better and more accurate because they don't like being made fun of. Assuming he doesn't just end up in prison. All right, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. Hope this helped out with some issues, and catch y'all next time.
See you guys.